for which I'm not paid for, but anyway, I'll do it. We are ready. We're just waiting for the candidate to be called. She was here. She's just. Oh, it's Defu. Sorry. Yeah, he's here. He's coming in now. CJ, give him 2 minutes.
All right. Is the Honorable MEC and the Honorable Judge President, are they there?
Morning, CJ. I'm here.
How are you, my brother?
I'm well, CJ, and you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Right.
Good morning, MEC Kabate.
Morning, CJ.
Are you well, ma'am?
I'm well, CJ, and how are you, CJ?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you.
Colleagues, as you're probably aware, MEC Kabate is the MEC for Social Development, representing the Premier of the Free State. And Judge President Musi is well known to you. Good morning, Judge Duffy.
Good morning, CJ. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you, sir?
Fine, thank you. I must say I feel a bit like Minister Lamola. I would feel if we have to prepare for a cycle race. I understand he's a mountain biker himself. You know that you're fit, you know your bike is in order, but you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Will the wind blow? Will there be a crash? So there may be a storm from the people in front of me, I don't know.
No, it is well. I just want to apologize to you and to apologize to the Honorable Judge President Musi and the Honorable MEC Kabate for a late start, even to the public. We had some business to take care of before now, and that would explain why we are late. We're really sorry.
I'll accept that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Judge Dafu, after many years as an advocate and senior counsel, you became a judge. For how long were you a judge? Have you been a judge?
Well, I'm now for 9 years and 3 months.
9 years and 3 months. And very briefly, why do you believe this position should be yours? Just break a little bit, as briefly as you can.
Yeah, I don't know where to start. If you can give me perhaps 4 or 5 minutes, I just want to say that at the age of 22, I was admitted as an attorney, conveyancer, and notary public after part-time study. And I had to work during the day and study during the night. I passed all 3 of my professional examinations in my final year of study. And although I was hugely privileged as a white person, there's no doubt about that. I could go to 2 good schools and a good university. Many of us whites were still discriminated against in any event. There was the British-born people on the right-hand side, and there was the establishment of the English people on the other end. So as an attorney, we didn't get the opportunity to get work, or I, from the municipality. The work was allocated to one firm only. I didn't work for the big Afrikaans-speaking, Afrikaans banks. And I also didn't work for the banks like Standard Bank, United Building Society on the left-hand side, because those were for the establishment from the left. So it was a struggle to go through that, and when I got to the bar, I must say that I got fantastic support from many law firms, and it went well. The state attorney didn't give me any work because the establishment was still the same. After 94, 95, things changed dramatically, and I got work. I shall deal with that if necessary when I get questions a bit more. But may I just say that throughout my life, I've done my best. I've tried to walk the extra mile. I regard myself as tenacious, even if I'm not I do not have all the talent in the world. I'll believe in hard work. And as a result thereof, you've seen from my application how many judgments of mine have been reported. I've calculated, the person that nominated me worked out that the SAFLI judgments were 230 or 260, I'm not sure. But there was a time in the Free State that our judgments were not sent to SAFLI due to administrative problems. So I'm sure that except for ex parte judgments, I've written more than 300 judgments, which, and some of them, as I've indicated, have been reported. The judgments in the South African law reports that's been reported, I've roughly counted it is 22% of all the judgments in the Free State Division. We are 14, 15 judges from time to time, 14, sometimes 15. And in the all SA law reports, 40% of those judgments came from me. I wrote that the Oosterhuizen-centric judgment, Judge Kashalia, on a unanimous judgment, confirmed that on appeal. And I dealt with the exclusionary clause in insurance contracts, and that judgment was then used by the SCA in this guard risk case with the COVID issues. And if I may say, the CUT judgment, which is written already in August 2012, that was 6 months after I went to the bench. The minister appealed. I gave him leave to appeal, but he did not proceed at that stage. They changed the act, which I thought was a bit of a feather in my cap. There are other judgments also. The one where I hear people refer to seminal judgments, where I closed the case for the accused, which was really a serious matter, because there were 17 accused, and I closed their case due to delays. And in terms of Section 342A, the SCA did refused or dismissed the appeal, and they went to the CC, and the judgment was delivered sometime, was it in last year or the year before that, confirming my judgment, and confirming that I have taken the correct procedures, etc. That was the first judgment, as far as I'm concerned. That
Can I interrupt you? I'm sure some colleagues would want to dig deep into your forensic skills. Just allow me to channel you.
Yes.
This is a leadership position. This is a managerial position that you are applying for.
That's right.
Can you, as briefly as possible, share with us what leadership, what managerial skills are you bringing into the Free State Division where you to be appointed? In other words, this is why I am able to lead. These are some of the things that could be done differently. This is how I'm going to support the judges and my leader, the judge president, and that explains why I'm the best or the right candidate for the position.
Yes.
Very briefly.
Thank you, CJ. Obviously, the judge president is here, and I've got to be careful that I do not make negative comments. No, I'm just joking. The point is there are a few things. I've done an MBA on a few years ago, and specifically my dissertation dealt with cultural differences. In that case, it was between Afrikaans and English speaking. You can't believe that you get problems there. I've learned to deal with people of all creeds, color, races. I know how to deal with people of different nationalities, of different races. So in that sense, it's easy for me to understand the way that people think and to support them. For me, a leader is most of all a person that just does not talk only, but do the work. And I'm sure that my colleagues will understand that in that instance I excel, and I'm an example to follow. I have, for example, drafted numerous draft orders some 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, in order to show my colleagues how they should deal with matters, especially in the unopposed motion court, because I came to understand that the attorneys and advocates were sometimes not 100% informed as to how the relief should look like. I know that in Gauteng, the two divisions, Gauteng North and South, they've got practice directors we don't have. In the 1980s, our judge president drafted draft orders for us to use. I felt that is very important. I circulated that to our, and I did that without getting the consent from the JP first, but I said to him that I'm going to send it to the colleagues. They can consider it, we can consider it, and then if we're satisfied, we can either put it in practice directives or we can just see to it that it's distributed to the legal representatives. I know that some of my colleagues make use of that. I think it's a valuable tool, and that's in one instance. Then as IT and finance chairperson, I have dealt with numerous reports. The SNT allowance that they've increased for us judges now, I understand that Judge Dennis Davis has drafted a similar document. We were basically about the same as to what amount the amount should be changed, and that's been approved now. When I was introduced to the bench, my welcoming speech on the bench, I said the following, and that was my view when I was an advocate: where are the black faces in our even unopposed motion courts? We must make something about this. We must get the people to get the feeling that they can appear and that they've got confidence. And at that stage already, I initiated an issue with, and I got my colleagues Lakale and Rampai, and we approached BLA and we said to them, that is what we want to do. We are prepared to help you once a month on a Saturday. We'll give you lectures. You just get the venue, etc. Then they approached Nadal. Nadal approached them, and the two bodies couldn't really cope. They couldn't come to an agreement. A few years later, Nadal contacted me, and I gave them my first lecture. We did it with BLA also last year, the year before that. I'm supposed to give a lecture on Saturday again. That's part of my way of thinking of trying to get the legal practitioners to improve their skills. I'm always trying to deliver or transfer my skills. I was dealing with the regional court magistrates. I gave a lecture to them also. JP and I have discussed this many times, but I said to him every time, I don't want to be seen as the head boy in our division, but we should really, as judges, come together more regularly. Sajay does a fantastic job, but for us to transfer skills, I can learn from somebody else and people can learn from me. Unfortunately, we haven't done that, and that's something that I'd like to do. The other issue is that the Rule 37 procedure, which I think is not utilized properly. We can improve on that. Not without, I don't want to criticize anybody, but I think we can improve. And the last issue is, I came here with 2 files, and that is not how I normally work, because I am an advocate for paperless society. I've been taught about case lines. You do it in the Cape, the Gauteng judges are utilizing that in Gauteng, and my view is that we should do that and get that in as soon as possible. The only problem is we don't have Wi-Fi. They're busy installing it. We don't have it. The moment that's properly installed, I'll see to it, if my JP gives me the green light, that it be done, and I'm prepared to assist my colleagues and to help them with that regard. So I think that I can bring a lot to assist the JP in order to take a lot of his duties away from him so that he can carry on a more important work.
Thank you, Judge Dafu. Judge President Lucy?
Thank you, CJ. Judge Dafu, you've acted as the Deputy Judge President in the province, that's correct?
That's correct for
how long?
For 3.5 terms.
You have also made yourself available now for the SCA. You were on the long list, not on the short list. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Why?
JP, I discussed this with you. My intention was obviously all the time to apply for the DJP post, but then when the list came out, I saw that there were 5 vacancies advertised in the SCA. And I thought, and I must go back, is when I was still a student working at night in the library when my friends are only having their parties, I read those judgments of the appeal court then, and I thought to myself, that is my ultimate goal. I've relinquished my sporting career. I must go and sit in the appeal court then, and that's how I felt, and I thought maybe this is a chance to put up my hand and see whether I cannot get some sort of recognition.
And that flame has not yet been totally extinguished.
Yeah, no, obviously, I'm a loyal person. If I get the post as Deputy Judge President, I've got 6 years left in my career. I would probably not apply to for a post at the SCA because I would feel that my job is in Bloemfontein, at the High Court in Bloemfontein. I would rather stick there instead of trying to use that as a stepping stone to the SCA.
And then just lastly, you, as a general rule, never have reserved judgments for longer than a month. Most of your judgments are written very promptly.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, JP. MEC?
No, thank you very much, CJ. I would like to pose a question to Judge Dafu. I believe, Judge Dafu, that you are supposed to play a transformation role within the country. As a person who, when you spoke here, you said you know the pinch also. But I just want to maybe to understand from you, me being MEC Social Development, what do you call this, the secure centers being under the guideship of social development. Why is it that when judgments are made on minors, we see only black children be taken to secure centers and the white children are referred to the care under their parents? Why are we having that disparity within the Free State?
MEC, it's difficult for me to say that or to answer to that because, you know, some of those matters are normally being dealt with in the children's court, most of them. So, you know, they don't get to the High Court. But just on that point, just to refer you to the matter that JP knows about the lady that and the brother that were destitute and lying around in the streets of Bloemfontein 2 years ago. She wanted to appeal to the SCA, and if you remember correctly, she tried to institute action against your department for claiming millions of rands. She was, and when I found out that her brother didn't have a place to stay, I arranged immediately with you people through the state attorney that he be taken to a children's shelter. And she was also taken at my request to a place where she stayed for a few days, but then she walked away there. She didn't want to deal with their procedures and eat at the right times, etc. So my view is always the vulnerable people in our community, the children, are very relevant to me, and I will always do my best to make sure that they are properly catered for. In this case, I didn't have to do that, but I did that. Application wasn't urgent, but the issue of the child was an aspect that was dealt with on the baseline, the sideline, so to speak, and I used that to say, I'm going to listen to this lady on an urgent basis, and I dealt with it. And I must say, with the cooperation of the State Attorney, the department did well to deal with that. That child was eventually taken by the family after the children court hearing. The real family got hold of the child, and they were given foster care of the child.
SJ, I was asking the question because I can see that you once dealt with a case of a child, but also I thought that as senior management, you maybe do sit and look at this thing so that we shouldn't treat people unfairly. It is really unfair that when we go to the secure centers, we are having 3 secure centers in the Free State.
Yeah.
And all of them, if you visit them, it's only, we can't be told that it's only black children who are supposed to be diverted to secure centers, but others are diverted to their homes.
Yes, I hear what you say is, and again, that is children's court, but it is perhaps something that we, and it's the first time that I hear that we can deal with that as management in the High Court, because the JP is entitled to in the normal meetings with all the role players to deal with issues like that, and I'm sure that could be looked after and looked into.
Thank you.
Thank you, MEC. Colleagues, may I just have the names of those who would want to put questions to Judge Dafu, if any?
Nyambi, Matonsela,
Tsepe.
Arnold, Makwanisha,
Lucas.
Sigogo.
Wait a minute, please. There was something just before Commissioner Sigogo. There was somebody, Honorable Magwanisha, and then somebody, and then Commissioner Sigogo. Who was that?
Lucas, I suspect.
Is it Honorable Lucas? Yes. All right.
JP Lambo.
Okay, JP. Okay, JP.
Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Nyambi?
thank you, CJ. Morning, Judge.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
As a person that has acted in the position you have applied for and you are current judge there, if you can share with us the current immediate challenges facing that division.
Well, COVID was a factor. Our division normally, we are, according to the NPA statistics, normally number 1 and number 2 in the country of all the divisions. According to the latest evaluation, we lacked a bit. We met all our standards, but the one thing that we didn't meet was about criminal cases that couldn't be finalized. Those are serious issues. I was involved in 2 where COVID, the advocate in the one case and the attorney got involved. In the other case, in the one case, 2 weeks after each other, and in the other case where the main witness couldn't get from Gauteng to Sasolburg because of the code regulations. So that's a problem. Otherwise, I must say that we're a happy family in the Free State. I hear what people say about the ACA. We are colleagues and we are friends, and I think it goes well in our province. Yes, I've mentioned the issue of Rule 37. I think that sometimes Rule 37 I was there to get civil cases finished earlier or finalized earlier. Unfortunately, sometimes it happens that because of the different way that different colleagues work with it, the matters are taking longer than they should have taken before they trial ready. But that's the thing that we can sort out, and that I promise that if I can get the job, that I will do to make sure that that be attended to. I cannot, off the cuff, think of anything else. We are, obviously, the other thing is internet. We have a problem with that. The internet goes off frequently. But then we'll have to think that all the judges must get routers and so that we can keep on the internet or the Wi-Fi all the time. Yes, it is so that the budget is gone. We can't get hard copies anymore. We've got to more and more rely on soft copies on a digital format, and that is a thing that might cause problems to some of our judges. But that's something that you can learn. You can help carry on with it. But I'm satisfied that it goes well there.
A single quality of a DJP that you think you possess that you can offer if you can be given an opportunity for that position?
For me, it is dedication, hard work, long hours, being an example to my colleagues, open door policy, assist them, learn from them, but also transfer skills to them. That's my attitude.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, Honorable Nyambi. Commissioner Madonsela.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good morning, Judge Duffy.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Maybe the question I'm going to ask is linked to the one that was asked by Commissioner Nyambi. Can you list 3 duties of a deputy judge president and tell me why you are the most suitable person to execute any of them?
You see, Commissioner, thank you. With my little background, and I'm not a legal labor law specialist. I did a lot of labor work at my time. But the first day that I went into the office after, when I had to start my first stint as acting deputy JP, I went to the JP and I said to him, "Where's my job description?" Every employee must have a job description. And I'm sure that there's no job description for DJPs. He said to me, "There's none, but don't worry. Whenever I need your assistance, I'll see to it that you do what I want from you." And in that case, with the previous judge presidents, I numerous times did speeches at various institutions on their behalf. And whenever the roles have to be finalized or drafted, I'll be called and say, "Well, listen, you've got to do it," and then we do it. But I think it's a bit informal. It's not as formalized as in a big division, because as I said, we are working so closely together. My office is next to his or very close to his, so it's easy for him to phone me or come around and say, "Well, listen, I want you to do that." So there's no job description, and as far as I'm concerned, there are no 3 tasks that I can offer to you. So I have to say to you is that he wants me to go to and deal with the court roles for the next week, for example, or for the next term. I'll take the day or the night or the weekend and I'll do it for him. And if I need to assist with attendance of magistrates, for example, I have to see them or other stakeholders and have meetings, the term meetings that they normally have, and you can't do it, then I haven't done one of that, I must say, but then I will do that. We've got a system there where the JP meets all the advocates and the attorneys and the police and the correctional services and all that at a meeting where everybody can come up with their queries and matters are dealt with in order to make sure that our court system is effective.
Okay, well, if you don't have any identified duties there, let's leave it at that. Can I just ask another question? Do you see yourself one day as the JP of the Free State, or do you have any aspirations to one day become the JP of the division?
Commissioner, I I have thought about that, and let me be honest with you. I've on 2 occasions said to my JP that's before the nominations or before the applications came out when I was still acting, because he said to us, "I'll let you act, but you must promise that you will apply for the post if it's advertised." And at 2 occasions I said to him, "JP, you know what? Maybe I should not apply. This post is for a woman." Women, I've supported women all my life. My wife was a prosecutor and a magistrate. I understand the plight of women. My view is that for the deputy judge president post, I'm the right person at the right time. Yes, people might say, but how can you have 2 males there? People might say, but there are not enough people, women in leadership positions. I'm of the view that I'm the more senior of the 3 of us, by far, in respect of the one candidate. But I still believe that somebody like my colleague Mbele, and we are all close, we close, she will one day become the JP of our division. But for my view is for leapfrogging her now over me, it's for the commission to decide upon that. My view is that she'll get her time. She's 5 years there. She needs extra time. Many of the judges are seniors, and if they're not seniors, are much older than what she is. And so I do not see myself. I've got six years left. I do not see myself necessarily to become the JP, especially if I've got to compete with any of the other 2 ladies that are there with me, especially Judge Mbele, who is a younger person. My twin sister and I we're the same age, so I can understand that somebody like Judge Mbele will one day get a higher position.
Thank you, Chief Justice. I have no questions.
Just a follow-up, CJ. I know Judge, I know the president of SCA is going to fight with me.
I'm leaving the follow-up to Malema. I didn't want to take all my time.
What are you applying for? You are applying for a position without responsibility. Is that what you are telling this forum? Because you are asked, mention 3 responsibilities of DJP. What are those? Or you just want to have the glory without any responsibility? What are the responsibilities of the DJP?
Mr. Malema, there's no job description, and if there's one, then it hasn't been given to me. The DJP in our division has always been there to assist the JP whenever it is necessary. And whatever the JP has to do and he cannot do, he will allocate to whoever is his deputy judge president. And as I've said, I'll walk the extra mile for him every day.
It's fine, CJ, it's his answer.
May I help you? My question may help you, Judge Daffy. What are the responsibilities of the JP, very briefly, that you see yourself contributing towards their better performance as a deputy?
Well, the judge president must run the division. He must steer the ship. That ship must be getting out of the harbor and not in the harbor all the time. It must be in the open sea. He must make sure that his judges do their job, that they are there when they've got to hear cases, that they are not running around and not doing their work, that their judgments are being delivered as soon as possible. And he checks that. We've got a system there in our court where on a weekly basis, every Tuesday, we get the cases that have been heard the previous week, plus all the others where the judgments have been reserved and not been issued yet. And that he must do. My view is that we can do better in that case because there are judgments that are too long outstanding in my view. And if I'm the Deputy Judge President, I'll make sure that I take hands with my JP to make sure that you know, judgments that are outstanding for longer than 3 months, that it should not be done. There's no reason for that. And unfortunately, there are a number of judgments outstanding longer than that. That's an aspect that's got to be dealt with. The JP must make sure that his judges are well informed of all new developments, and he must also make sure that there's a proper understanding by the public, that we know that the public must not feel that they cannot utilize their right in terms of Section 34. They want to have access to the courts and they want proper access. And court roles must be dealt with on the basis that we've got to deal with our matters, urgent matters like in appeals or so. Finish the matters when they should be finished. Get the matters on the roll as soon as possible so that justice can be seen to be done. And that's a general management situation of the judge president.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Tsepe?
Thank you, CJ. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning.
Having acted as a DJP, I wanted to find out from you, are there any challenges in your division regarding allocation of work to judges for their optimum exposure? And if there are, what systems or process do you have or suggest you want to propose to deal with any of those challenges? And if there are no systems, what systems would you propose in order to do so?
Well, we've always had a system that, for example, if a matter is allocated to a judge and his matter gets settled, that he or she immediately informs the judge president, or if he's not available, the deputy judge president, so that other matters can be allocated to that judge. It often happens that one of his or her colleagues may have 2 or 3 matters and all 3 needs to go and run at the same time, and it's impossible. So then you know that you can handle and you can take the one matter and give it to the judge whose matter has been settled, so that you don't sit with the one judge being in a situation that he gets nervous or she gets nervous and say, how am I going to finish this? You take the work away and give it to the one that's lucky for that his or her matter has been settled. And what we also do is we make sure that everybody doesn't get every week appeals. We make sure that people are not getting all the appeals during a term, and whilst others do not get any appeals whatsoever. And same with the post motions, that kind of thing. So we try to distribute the work evenly between, and there's an open policy. If somebody feels that he's getting too much work, he or she comes to the JP and says, well, you know, I've received 20 reviews the previous week, and I hear my colleagues haven't done anything for the last 2 weeks, or whatever the case may be.
Thank you, Judge. My next question, you dealt with some aspects of it, and it is about timeless delivery of judgments. And as you know, that is one of the key things to be able to deliver justice to the public, to ensure that we deliver judgments timelessly. What interventions would you propose to capacitate judges to meet expectations in this regard?
Well, you know, there was a day that one of our judges, and I mean, I wasn't even deputy judge president at the time, or acting, had a problem, a huge problem with outstanding judgments. And I took it on myself, and I offered my work, my presence to her. And I said, I can't write your judgments for you, but what I can do is we can look at your files and see which of these are more important than the others, and try and get a structure for you so you can get them out. You can't sit with 20 judgments. You're not going to know where to start and where to end. Luckily, it wasn't necessary with COVID. I think the judge perhaps had more time and finished some of the work. But that's my view, and that's what I would do as a deputy judge president. I can't write anybody's judgments for him if I'm not involved in the matter, but I can use my empathy, I can use my attitude, my compassion for my colleagues to go and sit on a Saturday or Sunday and say, well, let me see what is your problem. Let us try and see whether we cannot get this judgment out for you.
Chief Justice, I promise you, this is the first time I have a follow-up on a question.
It is true. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you. Judge, the issue I just wanted to raise is, I don't think it's sustainable for you to go to one judge at a time who's having a difficulty, like you have suggested, which is why my question was, what are the intervention, meaning systems that we put in place to ensure that that happens, the timeous delivery of judgments happen as a matter of course?
Now you see what, excuse me, you see what happens is that we get a list, all of us, the list is distributed to all of us. So I can see, and don't have lists here, and I can show you at any given time how many judgments are outstanding in which matters for all my judges. So I can tell you this judgment is outstanding for 6 months or 182 days. This one is 170 days. This judge is 100, and I know another case, and I know anything about that. So my view is, but I can't do it as a normal, as a judge normally. If you've got the authority of the judge president or acting on his behalf, you could see to it, if this judgment goes over 30 days and say, well, red flags are beginning to, to surface here, and speak to the judge. And when it goes to 60 days, see whether you cannot intervene and help 90 days. But 90 days is basically a limit we should not go past, unless there's exceptional circumstances.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, Commissioner Tsepe. Commissioner Mapele.
Thank you, CJ, and good morning, Judge.
Morning.
Judge, when it comes to issues of transformation, I'm one person who wants people to talk about it, having proof that they have done it. In page 10 of your submission, or your questionnaire, you speak about having empowered Black pupils and students, all that those nice words. But one of the things I have a problem with is that you took Silk in 2009, and during that time, there were 2 advocates, Black advocates, women advocates, who had to leave the bar because they were not supported. And you were a member of the bar council.
Yes, I said that in my previous interview, and I'll say it again. And I know that after my previous interview, some of my colleagues at the bar were cross with me. They were having all sorts of arguments about this whole thing. I've got, I don't have it here. I had the previous time, my circulars that I sent out on a monthly basis to my colleagues. When I got appointed, I only got appointed as a chairperson in April 2010. But from my date of appointment, and before that, when I was in the bar, my view is that we've got to look at the juniors. We've got to make sure that, say, for the first year or 2 years, they don't pay any bar fees, and to assist them with it. I even drafted the maternity policy, and 2 women in my bar decided that that policy should not be taken further, where we said that women, for example, during their pregnancy should not pay bar fees, and they should be assisted financially. With the Black advocates specifically, I was the one that we were less than a handful that had a buddy policy that we used, which came from the GCB. GCB said you may not share fees with, well, that's the advocates rule. You may not share fees with another advocate. But to assist black juniors and females, they came up with a scheme where you work on a buddy system. You act as an advocate, even if you're not a senior advocate. But if there's not necessary for two advocates, then you can ask your attorney for that a buddy or that somebody comes and helps you with a case. He doesn't have to have too much knowledge about the case, but just to get the experience. Then you as the advocate, the senior, present an invoice for your normal fees. And we forfeited 30% of our fees to our buddies, our black and female buddies. And I think the one lady that you're referring to, if you ask her, she'll tell you that I took her on as not on that system, as a normal junior, and she made a lot of money in that one case only. So I tried my best to ensure that the black juniors are cared for. And and I can tell you, one of those guys and I'm not going to mention his name unless you want that I used to on the buddy system, he's now a senior advocate at that bar. And whilst on that topic, let me just say you the following. There's another advocate there. Mr. Mpofu will know that the bar had an issue in the past. If you're a pupil and you don't pass your written examination, end of story, you start over the next year again. This person failed his written examination, black person. I said to the GCB, I was not the chairperson at that stage, I was just dealing with the training. Please people, you want the Free State Bar to transform. This guy is a good candidate. You make an exception this year. Let that guy pass let that guy go for his orals. I promise you that he'll pass that. They allowed that. It's the first time in history, and I don't think they've ever done it afterwards. He had a problem. He didn't understand one question correctly, and he missed it, and he failed the written examination. That guy is doing well at the bar, and it is, I don't want to say it's because of me, but I can tell you he wouldn't have the money to come back for a second year.
Okay, thank you. Just a follow-up. I'm a bit bothered by your paragraph 18. And whilst you are explaining to the commission, you are talking about one guy, that guy who made money because he made a lot of money. Basically, for me, your paragraph 18 and say that you have empowered a lot of blacks, it's a lie.
Where are you now?
Page 18. Page 18 of the questionnaire.
No, paragraph 18.
I mean, page 10, paragraph 18.
You refer to a lot of.
Yes.
Where do you read that? I said I actively tried to recruit black legal professionals for the advocates profession by contacting local university and law firms. I was for many years involved in training of pupils and supported the buddy system, where black and female juniors obtained exposure. I never said that there were many of them. I just make that as a general remark.
Yes, that's the problem I have. People making general remarks as if they are transforming the profession.
Commissioner, if you go out here, you find any of the black advocates at the bar, Mr. Motlong, Mr. Mene, Mr. Marabi, were there in my time, and ask them what this guy did for black advocates at the bar. Just do that. You don't want to accept what I tell you.
Okay, the very last question, CJ. I'm like Commissioner, etc. I never ask a lot of questions. The last question. I'm talking out of knowledge, Judge. I've done a survey of the Free State. In case you don't know.
You don't? You did it?
I've done a survey of the Free State and how black practitioners are faring. In case you don't know, I'm the chairperson of the Legal Practice Council. And those are the things that we are finding in the Free State. And you want me to believe that you will lead that division.
Well, are you talking of the legal practitioners?
Advocates are legal practitioners.
Now, let me put you this way. First of all, I cannot speak for what happened after I left, but what I know is that even after I left, I was called basically every year by the pupillage committee to assist black advocate, well, all the pupils in doing their orals and court skills and so on an annual basis. And it is true that it's difficult to make a living at the bar if you don't have contacts. And that's why I said in my speech, and I'll quote it for you, the speech that I gave as a judge, my first speech in the motion court where everybody was sitting, and I said, I've asked how many times for attorneys, because the attorneys give the jobs to the advocates. They can't go and get the jobs themselves. The attorneys must instruct the advocates, and the attorneys must get authority from their clients to do that. So if you want to complain about that issue, you've got to go to the ABSA banks and the net banks and the ESCOMs and those people and say, why don't you tell your attorneys to give work to Mr. A, B, or C? And I've said, and I repeat it, there are too many black faces appearing in the High Court, and I have advocated many years that this must change. And the only way that can change is the people get exposure, and they can only get exposure if they get instructions and assistance from seniors or whatever the case may be. But the attorneys must instruct them. I've how many times said, why must if there's, for example, a black woman or a man in the divorce court, why must a white junior go and do that divorce case? Why can't they instruct one of the black juniors to do that? You know, I've done a lot to try and influence people, but I'm not the attorney that give the instructions to the advocates.
Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Barnard.
Follow up, CJ.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Apparently, there's a follow-up. I'm sorry to do this to you, Commissioner Barnard. Apparently, there's a follow-up from Commissioner Sigogo. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I would want you to clarify this issue when you say you could not understand why a white advocate will come to court and do divorce matter when there's a black or a woman advocate. I do not want to understand you to say that is the work which is suited for black practitioners and women practitioners. I want you to clarify that.
No, not at all. You know, when I went to the bar, I was, as a junior advocate, received many unopposed motions. In fact, my first 2 years, I didn't even do high court trials in the high court. I made money from the unopposed motion court. And you get 10 or 15 or 20 cases in the unopposed motion court, and many of that in those days were divorce matters because, you know, all the divorce matters were, or most of them were dealt with in the High Court. And it was basically easy money to appear in unopposed matters for a relatively young junior person that, you know, there's not a lot of intricate work involved. And I'm not degrading the juniors to say, but they should take the work of that. I did, all that I try to say is I'm using that as an example. Here comes the lady, she is Sesotho speaking. She insists that she wants to speak Sesotho in court. We get an interpreter. Why must they are in the bar, in the advocates' chambers? Why must that poor lady now speak English or Afrikaans to the advocate just to go to court and do that in Sesotho in her home language? It is preferable. In my view, it is so easy to say, well, she's Sesotho speaking. There are 3 or 4 Sesotho juniors here in the bar. Give the instructions to one of them, not because they can only do the work of black clients. That's not what I try to say. I say that the motion court is an easy way for young people to get, you know, experience and get some comfort, and, you know, so they can later on do opposed matters.
Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Magwanishan.
CJ, was it not Honorable Barnard?
Cancelled him for some reason. I'm sorry, Honorable Barnard. You are all honorable, by the way. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, CJ. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Sigogo. But it was good that that follow-up went first. You've been an attorney, judge, and you've been an advocate. I think an attorney for about 12 years and an advocate for 22 years. So you, to a certain extent, understand the profession. I also see that you've got a business administration qualification added to the 3 law degrees. How do you think that would be able to assist in the DJP function?
Well, you know, when I looked at my law book, not my law books, when I looked at my textbooks again in respect of the business administration course, I knew there was such a book, and I got it. The one was specifically about managing change, and specifically about cultural issues. And that's why when I addressed the LPC, I make the point that especially the advocates must accept change. You must accept that you're under a new environment now. It's all for the better, for transformation, for transparency, etc. And I believe that I'm fully equipped to deal with those issues. Just as a matter of interest, I do not profess to speak Sesotho not fluently and not at all, but I know a lot of phrases. I can help myself in a shop or in a garage or in my garden or wherever, and there's not a problem to me. And I think that I think we are 36% white people at our bench now. We've got to, for example, get to a system where we can get to know the other people's language, or languages, because there are Sotho, Xhosa, and Zulu speakers. So to see that we cannot, if you speak to somebody in his own language, you speak to his heart. If I speak to the security guards at court, you see the smiles, you just see teeth. We've got to get that, and at the moment you do that, there will be more trust. Surely we don't have a problem with trust there with us, but I think we can be a better family, and it will help with a lot of other things if we can get closer to each other. And MBA, must say, helped me a lot. For example, time management. How do you deal with that? How do you put in principles to make sure that better principles, that judgments are perhaps still delivered faster than we want at this stage or we expect at this stage?
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnard. Honorable Magwanishan.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning, Commissioner.
I've listened to Commissioner Tsebe and Commissioner Malema and Commissioner Barnard.
I don't think President Maya will hear you, Honorable Magwanishan. I think you're too soft-spoken.
My apologies, Chief Justice. I was saying that I've listened to Commissioner Tsebe, Commissioner Malema, and Commissioner Barnard. I think what we are struggling to get out of you is what is your management or leadership philosophy, and I think it's very difficult to get that out of you. I do think that your MBA at Buckinghamshire, which is now Mentorship, focused a lot on strategy, on management information systems, and how have you used those courses to assist the judge president? It's not coming out.
Yeah. Well, strategy-wise, it's the issue is we are there to serve the public. The public is our client. So we've got to make sure that the public gets the best service that it can. And as I said at this stage, it goes well in our division, but we can always improve. And in my view is that you can improve it by making sure that your judgments are getting out earlier, and that there are better communication pertaining to, for example, the attorneys and the advocates and ourselves relating to the trials that are being pre-trial minutes that's got to be, or pre-trial procedures could be finalized. So for me, the whole idea is to manage or help assist with the management of a system that is well working. You don't have to change something that is working well. And that's how I see it. But I've indicated the few aspects that I feel that we should look at and deal with it. And I'm not going to go through that again, but I mean, those are aspects that, and what I did was as leader of the bar, I arranged that instead of having your normal monthly meetings, for example, I had a letter that I sent out regularly where I deal with all issues and asking feedback from people. So everybody knew what was the issues, what were the issues there, and getting the feedback. For example, what I said about skills transfer, the one case that, and that's my view, is that you've got to, if there's a new act promulgated, or there's a new judgment of the CC or the SCA, all the judges don't get that all the time immediately. The judgment of President Maya, which was delivered on the 30th of September 2019, I know that well because I had an urgent application just after that about the validity of a customary marriage. I can't recall the name now, but I saw that on my computer when it was delivered, and about 3 weeks thereafter, there was an urgent application about a funeral. And the one guy stood up for the applicant, and he was relying on Justice Molamela's judgment. And I knew that I saw something, but I haven't read that judgment at that stage. And I said, I'm going to adjourn for a few minutes. And the young advocate, black advocate on the other side for the respondent, took his time. He took his cell phone. He came into court whilst I was looking at my computer in my office. And he said, Judge, the SCA has just given a judgment 3 weeks ago. I'm right. This application must be dismissed. And he read it from his cell phone from Google or from Safely. And I said to him, well, that's the one that I also read. The point is, at that stage, some of my colleagues didn't even know about the judgment. So you get to court, there are two advocates in front of you that know nothing, or not know nothing, but it's an urgent matter. They don't have time to research, and they perhaps put you on the wrong track. And this young guy helped me tremendously. The matter was dealt with, and all that I say is part of my management would be to make sure that my colleagues are all the time, as best as possible, equipped for their task. And that I can do through, as I've said, meetings with them, skill transfers, making sure, even on WebEx or on Microsoft Teams, make sure that everybody understands what the position, the legal position is on a regular basis. And what our problems is pertaining to practical things, people taking chances by getting judgments or orders from the motion court that they should not get, because you get some of those guys that try to influence people to get judgments that they should not get.
My last question, CJ. Part of the challenge that is there globally is that most judicial officers suffer from burnout, and there is a need for wellness program. Have you thought about it? And if you have, what is your view around a wellness program for judges in your division?
Thank you, Commissioner. We've been, the JP and myself and some of the, I can't recall whether the other colleague was at a conference in Cape Town in 2017 where this specifically was dealt with, and people from Australia came and talked to us. And I know that there's the JP himself has written commentaries on this. There is in the pipeline, I'm not sure how far they are with that, but the moment that I would be appointed, I would make sure, because I feel because I'm part of the women, the Women's Association also, and I understand women, and I understand that women sometimes more prone to emotional issues where they see stab wounds and they see people really being shot and killed and whatever. I get that. People come to me. They say to me that they feel it's difficult for them. So there's definitely a way, or there's definitely a solution to be adopted in that regard. And as I said, it's not in the Free State where this wellness program should be addressed also, but it's a national program where, for example, you'd be able to call in a centrum and in a center and speak to a psychologist, if need to be sent to somebody else. And as far as I know, that Parmet, the medical fund, would fund that on certain conditions. So that is definitely an aspect to be dealt with. And in fact, I participated in at least 2 breakfasts that were held by the women pertaining to wellness. So I'm fully I'm sensitive to that. And if I say that people are, it's not only women. I mean, men also. It's difficult for them to face all these stab wounds on a body. But my view is that men, perhaps, and that's a generalization, can shut their eyes and get it over and out. But all of us must be aware that we can get to a situation where it really gets, that you do too much work and that you can get burnout.
Thank you very much, Judge. Thank you very much, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Honorable Magamishe. Judge Dafu, are you aware that your JP has for over a year now been charged with the responsibility to develop a judicial welfare program for the entire judiciary? And he has been hard at work interacting with psychologists and all manner of aspects. Are you aware or unaware?
I'm aware of that, CJ. That's why I said that I knew that I already saw documents coming from him. I'm not sure whether I've seen a final program, but surely I'm aware of the fact. That's why I say that he interacted closely with the people from Australia and with Dr. I think Seth Cooper. So I'm aware that such a process is ongoing, and hopefully that will be finalized, that we can, that the people can benefit from that.
Honorable Lucas.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning. Good morning, ma'am.
I'm just afraid Chief Justice will say I like to use long introductions, but Judge Dafu, there is one thing that I want to say to you. When we are interviewing you, you are potentially the second in charge in the Free State Division. So we are speaking now to the leader of the pack. And that is why I think sometimes communication is something that is very important. So that we can get a clear message as to what is it that as a leader in that division you will do and what you will bring about. So I think I'm mostly covered, but I'm not satisfied with the responses that you are giving because you are not really elaborating. So just in general, what is it that you think transformation is? If you can respond that and I can feel satisfied, I will be satisfied with your responses.
Transformation. Excuse me.
No, it's still ESG.
Transformation, you find on different levels. I mean, you can get transformation pertaining to the imbalances in our legal community, for example, where you need to make sure that in terms of gender equality, as Women League stands for, that you get more representation on the bench. Surely that is a very important factor. So as JP, you will ensure that you communicate with the LPC and their members and make sure that people are identified that with a bit of support can start to act in the division. And that's what I say. It's important that you consider actively measures where you can speak to those bodies and say, well, you've got a very good advocate there, but she's been there for 5 years or 7 years and she's just doing motor vehicle accident cases. Give her other work. Make sure that she comes with and deal with other matters so that she can get a variety of experience. So that's one aspect of the work of a JP, is to make sure that proper candidates are identified, not even candidates, proper persons are identified to be enable them that they can get candidates. That's important, and that's not only women. That will deal with everybody, that will help to make sure that there is a transformation in the community. Now, can I just say that in the legal community, can I just say is that I've looked at all the stats, all the figures, and I think if you look at Section 174 of the Constitution, and you'll see that the issue of that how to deal with the appointment of people. You'll remember that when the Constitution was promulgated, there were about 100% white people and 0 black people. And there were perhaps 1 or 2% white females, if they were at a stage, but I'm not sure then, and 99% males. So we've come a long way from there to where we now. If I refer to you to the Free State, we are 36% whites at this stage of the total there. I've looked at some of the other provinces, Northern Cape, Northwest, and some of them. There are no white people there at that stage. So we've come a long way, but gender equality must always be dealt with, and surely transformation pertaining to black people cannot just be forgotten. So that's an issue to be dealt with there. And then obviously, once the people are appointed as an acting positions, make sure that you do as JP, and then the deputy JP, that you assist the people fully. Don't just give them the work and say, go and finish them, so that you can assist and try and transfer skills all the time during that acting stint, so that that person can get used to the work and eventually be appointed on a full-time basis.
Baie dankie, Judge Staffel. Ek is doodseker jy sal met my saamstem. Die belangrikste is hoe jy die mense ontwikkel om in staat te kan wees om die beste te lewer.
Commissioner, that is so, and I'll address you in English rather, because it's one of the issues pertaining to cultural matters. You don't speak a language that other people can't understand.
No, we do. We've got 11 languages, so ons praat al die tale hierso.
But what I want to say to you is that if somebody was asking, I didn't watch the interviews, but somebody asked one of the interviewees yesterday, and I've perchance looked at that. Why are there no female litigators? Now, I can tell you why. Litigation is for tough people. They want to fight. They want to fight. My wife was one of them. They want to fight. Many male persons decide to do estate work and conveyancing because they don't want to fight. And the same with women. Many women would get there. I mean, I've seen from my time at school and after that, the women were always better than us. They got the distinctions and they were smart, but they didn't get opportunities. And what would they do is they would go and work for Standard Bank or for Centrec or wherever, and or do conveyancing at a firm. But you know, let us be honest, for us that have been in a court, it is tough. It is, and I know the point is that you've got to go back to your children, you've got to look after them. It's not easy for women, and I understand that. It's a difficult thing for a woman to stand out in a court of law. But we must grow them. Hulle moet opgroei van hulle waarste daar af. They've got to be molded. And the only way you can do that is to transfer skills and to give experience. And that's it.
Baie dankie, Justice Duffel. Thank you very much, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Honorable Lucas. Commissioner Sigogo?
Thank you.
May I also add my name, please? I got distracted when you were calling for the list.
Okay, President.
Thank you. I hope someone will do follow up on what the judge ended up at. Otherwise, it may take my time. I've checked your questionnaire and your CV, and I saw your leadership role that you have played, other than the one of acting DJP. As a chairperson of the Society of Advocates, a chairperson of Finance and IT Committee of the Free State Judiciary that is in court, and lastly, as chairperson of Free State Cheaters Disciplinary Committee. Are these the only roles that you played as in a leadership role?
Well, if you're a partner in a law firm, you're a leader. You cannot be a leader if you're not a partner in a law firm. But I was also the chairperson of, let me just add that, I don't know whether it's somewhere. I was the chairperson of the Great College UCB before all the rigmarole started now. But long ago, I finished my stint in 27. And as sorry, not chairperson of the GCB, chairperson of the personnel committee of the school governing body. And when I was in the personnel committee, and I've advocated all the time for black teachers, what do you call it, educators, to be appointed. And in my time, there was at least, well, there was one appointed in the primary school and one in the secondary school. Those were the first appointments that were made. And I want to say that I feel honored that I was part of that process. So, and that was also in a leadership position that I had to steer the personnel committee through those times.
Thank you. I've got a serious difficulty with what I've heard from you, because it tells me or it confirms the tendency of men who believe that women can be leaders only in their absence. They cannot lead when they are there. You said
that females cannot lead unless it's in the absence of men.
Yes, I'm saying there's tendency, and I think you are also feeding to that, because you said Judge Mbele can make, and you are sure will be a JP of the division, and you will don't understand that she should be brought over you to be a DJP, but you are not ready to be, or you are not availing yourself to be a JP, and it will only be in your absence when you have left the judiciary that Judge Mbele can become maybe a DJP and then a JP. Am I wrong to say you are feeding to that wrong perception that women leaders will be best leaders only when men leaders are not there?
No, well, that's totally wrong. I've never tried to say that. This is that Judge Molamela was my JP, and she was a fantastic JP. And she's much younger than me. And you can ask her any time is that I gave my everything to her, and I walked the extra mile for her as well. I have no problem to accept a female leader. And I say again, she was exceptional. She was there for a short time, yes, but she was a good leader, really a good leader. And I've got no, and she's much younger than me. All that I say is in respect of my colleagues, and again, remember, I don't want to say this colleague or that colleague. I think I like them. They're fantastic colleagues. All that I say is Judge Mbele is here for 5 years. She's still young. Most of the people there are older than what she is, although some of them are not there for shorter periods perhaps, but they're older. And I just think out of a seniority perspective that her time will come. And that's all that I say. There's no way that I can say that a women cannot lead. Of course women lead.
Follow-up, CJ, and this will be the last one.
It looks like there's a follow-up trend, but go ahead, sir. It is okay.
Thank you, CJ. Will there be any harm if we may ask you to consider, because there are 2 female judges who are competing with you on this position, and you have no problem with female leading, and you have considered that one of them is a fantastic leader. Will you see any harm if you may give space for them to be DJPs when they are preparing to take over from the JP when he leaves?
Can I just say that if I say that Judge Mbele is a fantastic leader, don't take me wrong. I think Judge Naidoo is also a good leader. I mean, no doubt, she's my friend. She's the same age as what I am. She's been involved in many leadership positions, so I'm not trying to say this one is better than the other one is for the commission. But the point that you're raising is, and that's what I've discussed with my JP, is must I make myself available? I have made myself available. I can't see that I can withdraw at this stage. Otherwise, I would have come in this morning and say, well, all the white males have been clobbered from left, right, and center, as I've heard. I haven't seen the things. And therefore, you should not be here. You should not be here. End of story. But I'm here, and it's for the commission to decide.
Thank you, CJ. Thank you, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sigogo. JP Mlambo.
Thank you, Chief Justice. I think Commissioner Nyambi covered the first question I wanted to ask, so I won't ask it. Judge Defew, what do you consider to be the challenges facing the judiciary? And I don't want a long story. And what do you think, as an aspirant leader in the judiciary, could be done to tackle those challenges?
I think I'm just going to deal with 2 things. The first is what I said to the LPC already in 2018, long before COVID. We've got to, and I've laughed about this, we've got to go to a paperless society. We've got to deal with that. All other people, engineers, auditors, whatever, deal with it that way. We've got to deal with it that way. And there will be problems, but we can sort it out. I've seen it myself with unrepresented people arguing matters before me on WebEx, where I've made arrangements with the Bar Council that they go there and deal with the thing. The second thing is obviously, and it's a worldwide thing, and that is with the internet, with Instagram and all these social media platforms. Anybody can, any time of the night, decide, well, I'm not happy with this judgment, and I can try and say whatever I want about that judgment. We'll have to have a situation where the leadership of the judiciary speak on behalf of the judges and make sure that these aspects be dealt with. And unfortunately, it is so that we need the help of the executive, because they are an arm of the state.
So you say the leadership needs to speak for the judiciary.
We've got to.
What else should be done?
And well, and then obviously we must not open our flanks for unnecessary criticism. And the way that you do that is to write a proper reasoned judgment and make sure that your colleagues and everybody do that, and just not delay matters and postpone matters for whatever reason, or give judgments without reasons. So it's again a question of us and in all the divisions to make sure that skills are transferred on a regular basis.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice.
Thank you, JP. President Maya.
Thank you, CJ. Good morning, Judge Dafu.
Good morning, President.
First, I just want to note that you're a long-standing member of the South African chapter of the International Association of Women Judges, and one of the very few male judges in our judiciary to openly support the women in the judiciary. And you are also involved in charity organizations that look after vulnerable children. Thank you for supporting the women and children of South Africa.
Thank you.
And that is why I'm surprised that you applied for this position. That's the other side of the coin now. The Free State High Court has a male judge president. Don't you think it would serve the transformation imperative to have a woman deputy if there's a suitable candidate? And having asked that, won't you consider withdrawing from this race so that this commission can look at we have two women candidates, not just one, two, so we would not be at a disadvantage at all. There still is a choice.
Yeah. Well, President, as I've said, I've given it a lot of thought. My JP knows that, and I've mentioned it here this morning also. I understand what the situation in our country is. I just feel at this stage that to withdraw my candidacy, it's for the Commission to make a decision, and I'll abide by that. I just want to say, there are many people, and let me be blunt, there are many women also that give less for their women folk, their friends, than men. There are many white people that care more for their employees, black employees or their black colleagues, than black people. Once they've got positions, they think about themselves. I'm not one of those people. My track record with my employees and with my colleagues speak for itself. Is although I am seen to be white, I'm probably not that light. If I'm seen to that, and I'm a male, I can't change that. My feeling towards our community, our old people, our women, our children, the vulnerable people, and I've written judgments on this numerous times about my feelings pertaining to that. And when I sentence people, for example. And I feel that, notwithstanding the fact that I would be a second male on the leadership of the Free State, that I could play a vital role in that capacity to ensure that the plight of women specifically then in the legal sphere, that is being dealt with properly.
All right. The last issue concerns your comments about Judge Mbele's candidacy, and I've been partly covered by Commissioner Sigogo's response there too. I do appreciate your honesty. Now, I just want to find, well, first, let me just point out to you that if age was a hurdle in these things, Judge Molemela and I would not have ascended to leadership positions in this judiciary, because Judge Molimela, I believe, was the youngest in your division, but she had what it took. She had the necessary skills and experience, and so did I, but I was one of the very youngest judges at the SCA, but I served the longest, and I want to believe that, as this commission found, that I had the capacity to do the job at hand. So I don't think age should be a hurdle at all. Now, you say she's young, she's just started there. Have you considered that, I mean, she didn't just come out of thin air. She has a CV outside the judiciary, in the judiciary, outside the Free State High Court. Are we not at large to consider, you know, the skills, the experience that she brings from those other undertakings that she's been through?
No,
Why must we confine ourselves to the fact that she just started at your court in 2016?
Yeah, no, thank you. Excuse me for interrupting, President. No, well, that is so. The same applies to all three of us, as we had a long stint of experience on various areas of the law. And again, I'm not here to say she should not be appointed. I say I should be appointed, although I accept that she has got leadership capabilities. And I know that I'm talking of Judge Leona Tron also, that went to the Constitutional Court, a young lady that I think she was appointed at the age of 32, although she didn't have act in a leadership capacity, but she's in the highest court of the country, and she's doing well there, fantastically well. So it's not about age all the time. All that I say is, if you look at a bunch of people and you look at a team, for example, whether it's a rugby or a soccer team or cricket team or a judicial team, then it's, in my view, can cause problems if you take the most junior, she's not the most junior, but if you take a junior person and make him or her the captain of the team. It happens, it works from time to time, but I think all of them will tell you, all these leaders will tell you, is that they did find it hard to overcome the problems with senior people, whether in a soccer team or in a rugby team or at the judiciary level. So that's all that I want to say about that.
Thank you. Well, lastly, and I don't want to create misapprehension here. I'm not punting for Judge Mbele, but I just want to find out, if she does end up being appointed, will you personally support her and also ensure that the other senior members in that court also support her?
President, I'm a loyal person. My whole life, I'm loyal to my people, to my colleagues, to my friends, to my leaders. You do not have to have any doubt about my loyalty towards my JP here or any of my colleagues, and if whoever is appointed as Deputy Judge President.
Well, we have noted your interest in the SCA, Judge Dafu. Thank you, Judge Dafu.
Can I just say that, because you've raised that now, there's a reason why I applied therefore, because of the fact that it is so that I haven't acted there, but there were 5 positions available, and I really felt that I think I could make a contribution. I've got a lot of extra aspects that I can bring, which I feel in the High Court there's not scope. For example, income tax law, competition law, that kind of thing, and corporate law. I thought that, with my background and a bit of experience, I might have been a suitable candidate. I was not shortlisted, so that's the end of that story.
Again, noted, Judge Dafu. Thank you. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, President. Thank you very much, Dr. Dafu. Your excuse, sir.
Thank you, CJ. And may I say to you is Oweba Hantle plus Singh, Samaya Hantle. The previous time when I saw you, I congratulated you on your appointment, but now you're going to farm with your Dikomo. I hope all is well for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Colleagues, as Judge Dafu is leaving, we're not doing very well time-wise. I still need to remind us, let's test suitability, and it does get to the point where we have a fair sense of how things are going. It won't be a better idea to withdraw your name when there really isn't anything to clarify anymore. And I thought I must mention that for what it's worth. Thank you.
Understood, SJ.
Good morning, Judge Mbele.
Good morning, Chief Justice.
How are you, ma'am?
I'm fine. How are you, Chief Justice?
I'm very well, thank you. I apologize for keeping you waiting. We should be finalizing deliberations by now. Sorry for the late start.
I understand.
Yes. For how long have you been a judge?
I'm on my 6th year, Chief Justice. I got appointed on the 1st of January, 2016.
And what exposure to leadership responsibilities have you had over time, ever since you were born? And how do you believe they will help you for the position you have applied for?
If I have to start from the time I was at high school, I was at some stage a member of the Student Representative Council at the time. And at university level, I participated in the leadership of the Student Christian Movement. I was also part of the Law Students Council at the University of the North, particularly attached to the street law program that was aimed at capacitating community members around Mankweng on basic understanding of what the law is about. Soon after I started my articles, my then principal, the now Kubushi J, her and other women in the surroundings of Putadi Chaba had started what they called a rape crisis center, which culminated into what became Tusanang Human Rights Center, a branch of the then National Institute of Public Interest Law and Research. When I started my articles, I volunteered my services to this organization. And when the CEO or the acting or the coordinator of that institution was requested to run the extended public works program for the Thabo Mfutsanyana district municipality, I was asked by the management board of that institution to take over as the coordinator. And I led that institution. I took a break from the legal career, and I worked in that institution. It was a human right. We were teaching communities around Kwakwa on human rights. We were interacting with the traditional leaders, exposing them to what is expected of them in terms of the constitution of the country as it was developing at the time.
I can see that you are settled now. Let me interrupt you and say you've played a leadership role for some years in the PLA. You've played a leadership role also at the level of Saola. So leadership is not something foreign to you, am I right?
That's correct, Chief Justice.
All right, now just tell us as briefly as you can how you see yourself fitting in the position or into the position of Deputy Judge President. How would you be of help to the division? How do you see yourself supporting the Judge President if you were to be appointed? As briefly as you can.
Thank you, Chief Justice. I am a visionary, and I know that the role of the Deputy Judge President is to support the JP. I will, from time to time, when issues arise that need to be given attention to, bring them to the attention of the JP and support the JP. But basically in the Free State, the JP is running a tight ship. There are systems in place. Firstly, there are systems in place which I believe they are working. If there's any improvement to be made, I would then bring it to the attention of the JP, whom I know would discuss with the fellow judges, with my fellow judges, and do consultation before arriving at a specific decision. That's what I'm offering the JP. And I will, as it is expected of a DJP, that in the absence of the JP, the GJP takes over the roles of the JP. I'm ready, and I understand that the roles of the JP would be to basically give leadership in that division. And
yes, please carry on, round up your point.
And ensure that courts run smoothly, and as well coordinate the activities of both the High Court and the Magistrates Court. That's one thing that I will be able to do because of the experience that I've had, as well as the regional, when I was the Regional Operations Executive of Legal Aid South Africa.
Well, I've had I don't know whether to say the fortune or the misfortune of finding myself a leader of people much, much older than I am. I don't think it was good luck that I was able, or some luck that explains why I was able to navigate my way through that. It looks like, from what we have heard, you may, if appointed, find yourself in a similar position. Are you confident that you'll be able to navigate your way around whatever challenges might arise?
I'm confident, Chief Justice. As far back when I was appointed as the Justice Center Executive in Velkom, amongst my team members, one of the civil practitioners was in the same class as my uncle at University of Zululand in 1974. And I managed to lead that institution, and I produced results. Actually, my justice center was one of the best performing justice centers in legal aid South Africa nationally. And above that, I had a good relationship with Mr. Wachela and the other team members who are much older than myself, because of my interpersonal skills that I possess and my ability, my humility. And because I know that we learn from each other every day, and I'm an open-minded person. I will continue to learn from all those that are willing to help and be part of this ship as it sails. So I don't have a difficulty leading those that are far experienced than me.
And finally, you would agree that at the end of the day, it's not about age, it's about capacity. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the president of France leading the whole country at the age of 36 when he started.
Correct, so Chief Justice.
Yes. Honorable JP Musi.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Morning, Ceci.
Morning, JP.
You have acted for 3.5 terms.
3 times,
Three,
JP,
yeah.
yes.
And you are also the chair of the library committee.
Yes, JP.
And Sinazo is the librarian, correct?
Yes.
She works basically with you.
Correct,
with
so
regard to
JP.
library issues. Is it not so that SCA judgments, as soon as they are delivered, Sinazo sends it to all the judges?
Correct, so JP.
Then I note that you have 4 reserved, you had at the time of completing your questionnaire, 4 reserved judgments.
Correct, so JP.
Are they now delivered?
They have long been delivered, JP.
And did you exceed the 3 months period with delivery of any of the 4 reserved judgments?
I think in 2 of them, I delivered them 3 months. The other one was 3 months and a week. I think the other one was 3 months and 2 weeks, because just a week after I submitted my application, I contracted COVID. And I was out of circulation for some time. I became very sick.
And just something else that I want to contextualize. We are generally a very young bench in the Free State.
Correct, sir, JP.
Although you only have 5 years and 4 months experience, there are how many other judges that are below you in terms of judicial experience?
If I have to, do I have to mention them by name? Yes, I
No, count them, it's fine.
It's Reinders J.
You're now mentioning them. It's fine.
8 judges, JP.
So out of a complement of 16 judges, and one of the senior judges has left. So we are basically out of 15 judges, 8 are your juniors.
Correct, sir, JP.
Thank you, Judge Mbele. Just one thing, seeing that I'm sitting next to your former boss here, how many people worked under you as the regional executive?
When I was in Limpopo, Mpumalanga, my team was 298, and when I went to Free State and Northwest, we were 385, but when I left, because there were new positions that were added, I think we came to about 402.
And you managed all those people?
Yes, I managed all the offices and the activities of both provinces, Free State and Northwest at the time.
You also had your own law firm?
Yes, I left Legal Aid South Africa and started my own law firm in partnership with the now Mhlambi J.
Thank you, Judge Mbele. Thank you, CJ. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge President. Honorable MEC.
No, thank you very much, CJ. Good day, Judge Mbele.
Good day, MEC.
Judge, I can see that you have been really been participating in various leadership roles, and that you have also been a volunteer in doing community work.
Correct, so
That you
JP.
are also participating in the structures that are representing women or gender equality and representation in terms of violence against women.
Correct, so let me see.
But no, there is still a concern about the cases where women and children, LGBTQI community, people with disabilities, when they have experienced vulnerabilities, you'll find that cases at times are taking too long for finalization. Cases are being postponed, and at times people don't understand the reasons for postponing. What is it that if you could be appointed as a deputy judge president, that you would, what strategies would you put to ensure that at least the cases are finalized in time? Because we know that as long as they are dragging, they are also extending emotional, abuse on the victims. So what strategies will you have to ensure that you address that?
Okay. There's currently systems in place, particularly when it comes to the division itself, the High Court. There are systems in place to monitor the finalization of cases. I know that at the PEEC level, the statistics is being kept to check how far has each of the matters that serve in the district court progressed. So in that manner is to be in touch with the respective leaders of the magistracy to ensure that the systems are put in place to monitor finalization of such cases. But on top of that, I think it's time that a special focus must be given to cases that involve vulnerable sectors of our society, in the sense that the longer or those that do not have the same capacity as any other person, that in the sense that if those matters drag longer, the pain also persists. And that I think the best way is for the respective magistrates' court to prioritize those matters, and if they, as and when they come up, to be given priority.
No, thank you.
Julius.
President Maya, as I write down, please do likewise, my sister. Let it be an ongoing joint responsibility. It's you, Honorable Malema, am I mistaken?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Sir Chair, can you please put me on the list? I don't know, I missed the list. Has not been called.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Muimang, Chief Justice.
You are there, Honorable Muimang.
Makwanisha.
Sitting Chief Justice.
Makwanisha.
You are there, Honorable Magwanisha.
Matoro Tlepu, Chief Justice.
Tepe. Lamola CJ.
Minister, you got me there? Tepe.
I'm not the minister. It's a slip. You are just before the minister.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Maya CJ.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. Honorable Malema.
Thank you very much, Judge. Are you a Christian?
Yes, Commissioner Malema.
How old was Jesus Christ when he was killed?
The Bible says he was 33.
Exactly, thank you.
Thanks.
Honorable Moima.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good morning, Judge Mbele.
Good morning,
Commissioner Muima.
Commissioner Moimang.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What is your understanding of the independence of the judiciary? And do you think that the judiciary is doing enough to protect its independence, given a text that has been raised against the judiciary? I suspect because you are from Free State, you are aware that members of the ANC in that province are not happy that on 2 occasions their provincial conference was set aside. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Moimang. My understanding of the independence of the judiciary is that the judiciary or the judges must make their decisions free from influence from other external forces, and that they must be given their space to operate and execute their functions without bias, favor, and prejudice. And that they shouldn't be contaminated by what is out there. I always say, when everybody else is confused, judges must remain sober. They have to give direction. When everybody else is running helter-skelter, it's judges who have to give fresh perspective. And what is the judiciary doing to protect their independence? I think at the moment, judges remain independent. Although there will be allegations and cries from people who are not happy about the decisions that are being taken, it's not that such decisions are influenced by external forces. Our role cannot be contaminated by the noise in the air. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Judge Mbele. Thank you, Chief Justice.
President.
CJ.
We have a standing arrangement with the president that when I disappear, she emerges. Anyway, Commissioner Mpofu.
Thank you, CJ. Sorry, CJ, okay, you can't see that. That was just a delay.
No, can I give you an opportunity to?
No, I'm done. No, it was just.
Have you followed?
I'm sorted. That was just a delaying tactic. Yeah. Thank you, CJ. Good morning or afternoon. It's afternoon now, Judge Mbele.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Mpofu.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Commissioner Mpofu?
Thank you.
Thank you.
But I won't ask you how are you because CJ will count that as a question. All right. Now, well, you've been here before, so I think we know more or less what to expect and have been covered in terms of your leadership capacity. I just wanted to ask you something about whether there's a challenge of facilities, for lack of a better word, in your court. Because I just remember that I appeared in your court when you were assigned to a case in Mthatha, because judges there were conflicted for some reason. And I was shocked afterwards to learn from your registrar that you drove yourself there and back to the Free State. And I think at that stage you were already acting DJP. So I found that very strange because I don't think the DJPs in other provinces would drive themselves for such a long distance, apart from the fact that it's quite dangerous anyway. So is there an issue there, or was it just out of choice?
I don't think that I had a choice because even I don't know if DJPs are being driven. In fact, my JP is not even being driven. He drives himself. But I don't think it's a question of I think that benefit is specifically set aside for the JPs. So I actually drove myself to Mthatha, and I must say, after finishing the matter at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I had to drive myself back to Welkom, which, and that was,
sure.
Yeah, strenuous. But
okay.
I'm here, and this is the commitment that I've made. There was a time when I used to work in Polokwane. Driving has never been my problem. I used to drive between Polokwane and Welkom every Friday and go back on Monday morning, and I still performed my duties very well in that office.
Okay, well, thanks. Maybe that's something.
For what it is worth, Honorable Mpofu,
Yes.
DJPs don't have chauffeurs.
Yes, no, CJ, okay, well, anyway, let's not belabor that point. It was also quite a sensitive kind of case, so I also thought it was rather, it could have been dangerous for the judge who comes from outside. Anyway, for what it's worth, it had something to do with the kingship, so it was quite a contested terrain. But anyway, okay, maybe the question then is, if you had needed some security, or would you have been able to mobilize it? Because I'm more worried about the facilities, the availability.
I think had I at that point needed securities, that would have been organized.
Arranged,
Because
okay.
in another matter that I was involved in at Kronstadt, there were security issues raised at some point, and there was an arrangement made that I be escorted every day for the 21 weeks that I was handling that matter.
Okay, good. Then I'm happy. All right. Then the next question is about this. Well, everything has been said about the leadership and the ageism that seems to be creeping in. But the issue is, if you've been, or since you have been acting DJP, have you ever had an experience of being undermined either because of your age or your quote-unquote juniority by the people that you've been leading on an acting capacity?
Not at all, Commissioner Mpofu.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Mpofu. Honorable Maganisha.
Thank you very much, CJ. Good afternoon, Judge.
Good afternoon, Honorable Commissioner Mangwanishe.
Thank you very much. You come from an organization that has a history of excellence. In fact, it's one of the best in the justice family. 19 clean audits. It has been voted as an employer of choice for 11 years. So that is the legal aid South Africa. So what are the aspects that you will be taking from that organization to your new role?
Thank you, Honorable Mangwanishe. One thing that I could pride myself about legal aid is that there were systems there and there was monitoring. And what I am bringing to this position from my experiences at Legal Aid is sound administrative skills, in fact, excellent administrative skills, because with my stay there, I had maintained 100% audit in all my offices that were being audited at the time. And I'm bringing with me leadership skills, and I'm bringing with me the ability to set up, standard operating procedures and policies in place. I must say that at times when I was at the National Forum, I had to draft policies for the National Forum before I left and joined the bench. And I'm told that some of the policies that I drafted were inherited by the now Legal Practice Council. That's what I will be bringing with me to this position.
Thank you very much, CJ. Thank you very much, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Maganesh. Honorable Singh.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Judge Mbele.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Singh.
Some peace.
Kuboni.
Chief Justice, my question would have related to collegiality and acceptance on the bench when the judge acted as DJP, but my senior counsel, the learned Commissioner Mbofu, has elicited a suitable response for me, so I will pass. Thank you very much, and good luck, Judge Mbele.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh.
Thank you, Honorable Singh. Commissioner Matolo Lepu.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good day, Judge Mbele.
Good day, Commissioner Matolo Lepu.
That I've worked with Justice Mbele for quite some time in gender issues at the Law Society of South Africa, so that's why I know her. But one of the things that you stole my thunder on is on saying that you actually drafted the policies for the National Forum and the Legal Practice Act. You did. That I can confirm, yourself as Mr. Skogo. And we are still using those policies now. So at least you stole my thunder, then I'll keep quiet. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Matolo Lepu.
Wow. Commissioner Tsepe.
Thank you, Minister. Sorry, thank you, CJ.
Minister is very important.
Well, no, she's determined to demote me.
CJ, I am so sorry. I was just joking. Good day, Judge.
Good day, Commissioner Tsepe.
I just wanted to just check with you on just one or two issues. One is, in your time acting as DJP, are you aware or are there any challenges in your division relating to allocation of work to judges for their optimum exposure in all areas? And if so, are there systems or processes to deal with any of those challenges? And if you don't have those challenges, have you put in place a system to ensure that there is fair and equitable allocation of work?
There are no challenges. There are systems in place actually in the division to distribute the work evenly to all judges. There hasn't been any problem. In fact, for the time that I was tasked with the role, I've never experienced problems with any decisions that I had to make in terms of allocation.
Thank you. Just the last issue relates to also to check if there are any challenges relating to timeous delivery of judgments by judges, and what are the systems in relation to that, if those challenges exist.
Okay. In our division, the JP has a spreadsheet that is color-coded, which is circulated every Monday. Either it will be Monday afternoon or Tuesday morning, that tracks all judgments. In fact, you will have on that spreadsheet a judgment that was delivered, that was reserved the previous day. So it tracks them in terms of days, not weeks, it's dates. You know, the more you see dates accumulating, the more scarier that document becomes. So the minute your judgment goes from yellow to your reserve judgment goes from yellow to red, the JP starts knocking at your door to explain yourself why is your judgment turning red. So there are systems in place.
Thank you, CJ. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Commissioner
Thank you
Tsepe.
so much, Commissioner Tsepe. Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you very much, CJ and Judge Mbele.
Thank you, Mr. Minister.
You have spoken glowingly about your role at the Legal Aid South Africa. And I just want to take it further from your discussion with Honorable Magwanisha. The Legal Aid is not only one of the best performing, but it's also one of the best digitized institution in the entire family. The electronic legal aid management administration system. Were you involved in its development? And if so, did you use it even if you are not? And what do you think that will help you in the division in the Free State?
Okay. Legal aid went electronic. I think that was in 2004, if not 2003. I remember when they introduced ad infinitum, and we started doing everything electronically, be it from tracking the activities of practitioners. I would be sitting at regional office, and I would know where a practitioner in Garangua was on that specific day. And the following day, I would know which matter was handled by that practitioner at Garangua and what was the outcome of that matter. As far back as 2004, we had those systems in place. And with video conferencing, as far back as 2005, 2005, 2007, we could by that time, we could hold our meetings through video conference, using video conference facility. We're far much advanced than most institutions. And that skill, I have used that skill. I was forced to use that skill because there was no way I would have managed to run the whole 2 provinces at the time without those systems in place, because sitting in my office in Bloemfontein, I would be able to monitor what was happening around the country if I wasn't doing physical visits of the justice centers. And that system, I know that now because of COVID, courts have been forced to move towards handling matters electronically. We are using the electronic platform. We are hearing the matter virtually. Some matters we are hearing virtually. Some practitioners do come and we hear them in open court. I know that sometime at the beginning of this term, I handled a text matter with practitioners in the parties and practitioners sitting in Pretoria while I was sitting in Bloemfontein in my chambers. Actually, I didn't have to adjust. I was already into these things. I understand the system very well. Thank you, Minister.
With that experience, what do you think it will help you in case you are appointed for this position? Do you think that kind of experience will benefit the division in terms of digitizing and moving to more electronic platforms?
It definitely will. I know that there are times when JP Mlamba, who's the chairperson of the IT committee of the judiciary, would give us report on the state of the IT infrastructure in this organization. And I would be the most vocal at those meetings to interrogate the JP and understand how far have we progressed in terms of migrating to electronic platform in a number of in a number of areas in terms of the work that we do. Either it be, I know that Gauteng has gone completely electronic in many ways. That hasn't hit the Free State that far, it hasn't come that strong in the Free State, but as if I get appointed to the position, I would then assist in making sure that what Gauteng has gets duplicated in the Free State.
Thank you very much, CJ.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Minister. Well, in the interim, maybe you must look at China and Malaysia so that you can contribute towards Justice Mlambo's development of the system on our behalf, because it's a full-blown modernization system there. President Maya.
Thank you.
Thank you, CJ. Good morning, Judge Mbele.
Good morning, President.
One of your senior colleagues has already raised the issue of your age and limited stint on the bench and used words such as you being parachuted over other senior colleagues if you are appointed. So I think it's important to pay attention. Now, you know that leadership in the judiciary is not just about administration. Your judicial prowess is equally, if not more important. You have to lead from the front in the courtroom itself, sit in the most difficult, complex cases, and in appeals, you'll have to preside over senior colleagues and lead the way. Do you think, or do you have what it takes to, to do that? Will you be able to do that and not flounder?
I have what it takes, President. In fact, when I was acting DJP and I had to preside over appeals and reviews, I actually wrote most, if not all, of the judgments that I presided on, just to show that I can do this job and I am capable.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you.
Thank you, President. And as you assigned yourself those cases over which you presided, I take it that it wasn't just colleagues who were junior to you that you sat with. Some of them would have been there longer than you, am I right?
Correct. So, Chief Justice, I know that in one matter I sat with the now retired Jordan J. It was an environmental, the matter that relates to the National Environment Management Act. And I think the other one I sat with Jordan J. and Naidu J. The other one I sat with Naidu J. and Renders J. I cannot get them all out of my head, but yes.
And there was no problem?
There was no problem at all.
Thank you very much, Judge Mbele. You are excused.
Oh, okay.
You wanted it to be longer.
No, thank you, Chief Justice.
The candidate is ready, Chief Justice.
Thank you very much, Judge President. Good afternoon, Judge Naidu.
Good afternoon, Chief Justice.
Are you well, ma'am?
I am.
All right. How long have you been on the bench?
Well, just over 7 years now.
And for how many years were you a magistrate?
From 1998 to 2013.
Yes. You've been in leadership positions over time, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And you've even acted as deputy judge president.
Yes.
Just give us some of the highlights of your leadership responsibilities, couple them with your acting stint as deputy judge president, and very briefly tell us how all that has prepared you for the position of deputy judge president that you have applied for.
Okay. I think it goes back to, school. I was the head prefect in my matric year and the head girl, and of course a prefect before that. And that in those days entailed quite a lot of responsibility. You had to coordinate the prefects, you had to allocate duties, and the principal of our school always encouraged the head girl and the head boy to adopt that leadership role. So it started then. At university, I was part of the group of students that helped found the legal aid clinic under the leadership of one of the professors at the university at the time. And every Saturday we staffed that clinic, and we would help members of the public, the poor people who couldn't afford lawyers and so on. And then I finished my degree and I went into private practice after doing my articles. And I served in private practice for a few years until I left there. And in that stint, just after that, or in between that actually, I was in the corporate sector as a legal advisor to a financial company. And then I went into private practice. Initially on my own. Initially, when I went into private practice, I was in partnership with two people. Then I went to the corporate world, and thereafter into private practice on my own again. I'd moved from Durban to a place called Verulam, which was closer to my home, because by then I started having my family and I needed to be closer to home. I practiced there for a few years and then joined the Department of Justice as a prosecutor. I was there for a few years, but in the role of prosecutor, I was a control prosecutor, I was the acting senior prosecutor, and then a specialist prosecutor as well, dealing with specialized crimes. And then from there, I was appointed to the bench as a magistrate. I held that position for a few years and then was appointed senior magistrate. And then my leadership roles within that environment, I was immediately deployed as head of the civil courts. And at that stage, the case management systems were being developed and put into place for the criminal courts. So the chief magistrate asked whether I could look at these civil courts, see how they performed, and if it was possible to start a case management system for the civil courts, which is what I did. And within a few months of my being deployed there, I devised a system for civil case management, which worked very well. And then I was taken to the family courts. They were not performing very well. And the chief magistrate again asked me to please put in place some sort of management of that section, of that division, which I did. And it went from being not such a good functioning division to one of the best in the country, to the point that I was then invited to address family court magistrates from around the country to say what we did in Durban to turn it around. And that's what I did. Also with the civil courts, there was a joint initiative, I think, between the Rules Board and Justice College, where again I was asked to address civil magistrates and senior magistrates in charge of civil divisions throughout the country on what we did, how it worked, and any assistance or advice that I could give. And I understand that the video that was made at that workshop was actually used in Justice College's training of newly appointed magistrates. And then from there, I also then managed the criminal courts for a few months until one of the senior magistrates retired. Now, our chief magistrate at that time, because the Durban cluster was so big, he created an internal position of deputy head of office. And then after a few months, he invited me to actually be his deputy, which I did from 2011 until I was appointed to the High Court bench. And in that position, I would obviously fit in wherever the chief magistrate, I was in charge of the Durban cluster, so things like leave and statistics and so on was all what I was responsible for. And then we had the forerunner to the PEEC was the PIJF, which is the Provincial Integrated Justice Forum, which was chaired by the JP of our province. I often attended those meetings and stood in for the chief magistrate because I would prepare the report from my cluster. And all the monthly stats and so on would come to me, and I was then obliged to prepare the report on stats and courts and management for that month. So often the chief magistrate would ask me to please attend the PIJF meetings on his behalf, which is what I did, and I interacted with all the role players who are, I think, pretty much the same now at the PEEC level. So that was my leadership roles as far as the magistracy was concerned in a nutshell. At the High Court, well, I sit at the moment on the IT committee with Judge Daffiu, and I've acted for 3.5 terms as DJP. I'm currently acting as the DJP as well. And that's been a very enriching experience. My JP and I get on exceptionally well. Well, we've walked a very long road. He and I have known each other since 1999. We've been through lots of trainings, diversity, social context, leadership training. So we walk a long road. We think very similarly, and we interact extremely well. His views and the manner in which he deals with matters coincides very much with mine. We're both very direct in dealing with problems. We do not like problems festering. So as soon as we're aware of a problem, we call in the parties that are involved, hear out what is their view, why has this situation arisen, and then we resolve it and move on. So I think from that point of view, we would work well together. In the times that I have acted as DJP, I've had no challenges. The JP interacted very well. He's often called away at short notice to meetings and other commitments. So he would simply send me a WhatsApp or call me and say, listen, I can't come in tomorrow. And I'd say, no problem. What is it that you were supposed to do? Tell me what it is and I'll get it done. And I did without any problems at all. Then outside of my judicial work, with the organizations that I was involved in, initially with JOASA, which is the Judicial Officers Association of South Africa, I was provincial chairperson, I was on the National Executive Committee, and I held various positions in that organization as well, including representing the organization at overseas conferences. And then with the IAWJ, the South African chapter, I am one of the founding members. I was the very first vice president of publications way back in 2004, and I'm still very actively involved. Within the organization, I've held, I was on the executive for 10 years and held various leadership positions there. One of our big projects was the combating human trafficking, where we secured a loan, a grant of, I think, 1.2 million or so from the US State Department, and I project managed that project very successfully. Our mandate, for instance, was 3 workshops nationally, train 6 or 7 judicial officers to be trainers, and bring out a manual, maybe 30 copies or so. We finally managed, with the way I managed the finances and the project, the rollout of the project, we've eventually held 6 workshops nationally. One trained, the trainers workshop, we trained 30 judicial officers nationwide to be trainers in combating human trafficking. We then brought out a manual and we printed 600 copies, not 60 copies, but 600 copies, so that every magistrate who participated in this and other stakeholders each had a copy of that manual. I was also one of the contributors to that manual, and our president has now initiated the updating of that manual, and I'm on that committee as well. So within the organization there were several leadership positions, and we achieved a lot as an organization in that time, and I would like to think that I contributed to that in the leadership positions that I was in that organization. And then other than that, the Law, Race and Gender unit, which I was talking about, my JP and I were both involved.
I think it will come out. You've said a mouthful or more than a mouthful. Other issues will come out as colleagues put questions to you. Let's park it there for now. Over to you, JP Musi.
Thank you, CJ. Afternoon, Judge Naidu.
Good afternoon, JP.
I want to preface my questions with a comment that you and I have discussed the issues that I'm going to deal with. And the first issue is, you're aware of the negative comment by the office manager.
Yes.
You have responded to that.
I have.
Do you want to add anything at this stage to that, to your
I
comments?
think I've covered it fairly extensively, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Now, the second issue is your questionnaire you completed on the 23rd of November 2020.
Yes.
And on the questionnaire, to the question whether you had any reserved judgments at that stage, you answered none. And when I looked at my list of reserved judgments, you had 3 at that stage. 2 of them 78 days old, and the one about 46 years old. None of them older than 3 months. We discussed the issue, and I also informed you that I will have to ask you the question, and you will have to respond thereto at this forum. Would you mind to give us a response?
Yes, the judgments were ready. And I was on circuit at the time when I completed the questionnaire, and I was returning, I think, the following week. The judgments were ready. I had sent them electronically to a colleague. And just before it got delivered, I realized that there was a whole section that I had omitted to put into that judgment. So I had to call the colleague and say, please just hold that judgment, because there's something that needs to be amended. That's how it was not delivered when it was supposed to have been delivered. And I then corrected it subsequently and handed out the judgment. It was an important point, well, not important, but one of the points that was raised and which I'd omitted. And it was only after I sent it to a colleague to hand down when I realized that that was an omission which I had to correct. So that was what had happened there.
Thank you, Judge Naidu. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, JP. Honorable MEC.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice. Good day, Judge Naidu.
Good day, MEC.
I don't know whether Judge President was referring to the complaint that is entailed in the package.
Yes, he is.
In his first question. I still want to take it further because it says, you said you have responded, but I still want to take it further, Judge Naidu, because I note that you are very well recommended by different associations.
Yes.
And I think sitting here, you do represent gender transformation as a woman. But I do have a worry, really, where I will seek that you maybe explain further what happened. The worrying factor for me that I wish for you to clarify is, are you the kind of person who does not appreciate collective decision-making, or do you appreciate collective decision-making? Are you the kind of person who will override and disregard others if you think that you are right in what you believe in? I'm raising this against that complaint because it seems as if you didn't even care whether those interviews are going to collapse or what. You only believed in what you believed in, and you wanted to achieve what you wanted to achieve against the collective that was working with you on that day. I feel like you disregarded everyone, and ultimately the interviews collapsed.
Well, I think my response to that clarifies that, and certainly I am definitely not one of these kinds of people, coming from the background that I do, who would simply ride roughshod over anybody. And certainly I've worked on committees and I appreciate how they work. And I've led committees such as that, because in KZN, being in the position that I was, I would sit on interview committees like that. And I must just allay that perception immediately. I'm certainly not that type of person. The way it was represented, that is why I say I answered that in my response, that it was not correctly reported, the way it happened. And I set out what had happened. I certainly did not disregard. I suggested a way where we could give a person who has potential, a woman who has potential, to try and accommodate her if we could. And that is the basis on which that was done. Not to, the concern there was, well, if we deferred the shortlisting, we'd prejudice other candidates. And as you would have seen from my response, I said, if we then accommodate all candidates who meet every other requirement except the driver's license, would that not prejudice them? And how many are there? They were not able to tell me because they just saw learner's license on everyone and simply rejected them. So I said, but shouldn't we think creatively to give somebody, a woman who's obviously got the potential, who's prepared to put in the work, an opportunity to better herself? And I said, I'm not saying we should, but can you do it? The immediate response of the court manager was, no, we can't do it. And I said, but why? If you do what I suggest, would you be prejudicing anybody? And they didn't answer. I said, well, can you find out from somebody in authority if that is possible. If not, that will be the end of the matter, and that's how I left it. And I said, if it can't be, I expected them to come back and say, no, we can't. I said, well, in that case, then let's carry on with the process. That would have been my reaction. But there was absolutely no feedback. And then months later, I was told that the position is being re-advertised. So I was delighted because I thought, okay, this was debated and the powers that be took a decision. And that was the total, the sum total of my involvement in that.
But at the time, the license was a requirement in your...
The driver's license was one of the requirements in the advert.
Okay.
And several candidates applied with a learner's license. And this particular lady who was acting, as I said, she was a stenographer and was acting as my secretary, could not get an appointment before that shortlisting process or before the advert, I think, for a driver's license. She only managed to get it, I think, 2 or 3 days later. Hence, I said, she meets all other requirements. Is it possible? If it's not, it's not. I would accept that.
Now, how, sorry. How are the relations now with your colleagues? Have they mended? And if they have mended, who took the first step to ensure that you are able to...
With the court manager?
Yes.
I've never had a bad relationship with her, and that is why I was so astounded at what she had written. She's always been extremely polite, friendly, and courteous towards me, and I to her. To this day. I encountered her coming into work one morning last week. I think it was last week. We both park in the basement parking. She came in as I was walking away from my car, and she greeted me very friendly, and so did I. I returned it. I've never had a bad relationship with her. And to this day, and as I said, I was astounded when I saw this letter from her, which troubles me somewhat because I would have expected her to approach me and say, I'm not happy with the way you did this. And we would have sorted out, or at best or worst, go to the JP and say, I don't like the way Judge Naidu handled that. So that I'm aware that that situation is a problem. Because if I was aware that it's a problem, I would most definitely have done something to resolve it, because we have to work with each other on a daily basis. And if there's, you may well have heard that ours is a very, very tightly operated ship. Our division functions really like a well-oiled machine. So if I was aware that this was a problem, my immediate reaction, and as I said, I'm very direct in dealing with problems and resolving them. I would have attended to this long ago. But it's not too late. Now that it is, I'm aware, and I've also been made aware of the unfortunate circumstances she has to work in. So it makes me understand what she might have been going through. And for me, the lesson is, and I hope I'll be able to sit down with the JP and work this out, we obviously need to improve communication at that level. But looking at her circumstances, I understand now that perhaps she didn't feel that she had a safe environment to come forward earlier, just given what she's going through in her space. And I understand that now. So what I resolved is to actually engage with her and try and resolve this situation, because it's not only going to affect me and her. It's going to affect our office. I mean, other judges may well have the same problem, and obviously I need to resolve it so she understands what ought to have been done in the situation. So communication for me, I think, is the lesson that we need to attend to now. And also to hear her out on what her perception was of my behavior. Maybe I unwittingly said or did something, and if I'm aware of it, I can correct it going forward, just so that I can improve relations and keep the harmony of the office going. It is a very harmonious environment we work in, and sometimes, you have these problems and they need to be resolved. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice. Thank you, Judge Knight.
Thank you, MEC.
Thank you, Honorable MEC. Colleagues, are there colleagues who have questions for the Honorable Judge?
Lucas,
Matonzela.
Makwanisha.
Dodovu.
Please, it's Honorable Lucas, Advocate Madonsela, followed by
Tolojepu.
Makwanisha.
Tepe.
Honor. Thing.
I said Dodovu if you didn't pick it up, CJ.
I've got you here, Honorable Dodovu. Thank you. Honorable Lucas.
And JP Mlambo, CJ, please. Thank you.
thank you very much, Chief Justice. Good morning, Judge Naidu.
Morning, Commissioner.
And thank you.
Good afternoon.
Is it afternoon already? So in actual fact, I'm glad that I'm getting this opportunity immediately after the MEC have spoken, because one of the issues that I wanted to ask with regards to the very same issue is the issue of how you dealt with the perception. Because if I read the document, I can see that there is a perception that you just wanted to get whatever you want without taking into account what is the circumstances. But also Chief Justice is really hammering on the issue that we need to save money and we need to look at the current economic circumstances.
Yes, correct.
And through the handling of this thing, I'm sure there is a case to make out for unauthorized or wasteful expenditure. What is your take thereon?
Well, that's exactly my point. I did not even think of re-advertising for that very reason. And that is the, it's like when you say the rules are there for the court is not there for the rules. You apply the rules so that you achieve fairness, you achieve equity. Simply, that was my thinking. Is there a way we can accommodate a stenographer who has shown such potential, who has shown such dedication? The only thing she didn't meet was the driver's license, which is, it wasn't essential at that stage for what a good secretary was supposed to be. And I said, in order not to prejudice others, let's shortlist all of the people who met every other requirement except that. And who knows, by the time they're interviewed, they may well, like I know the lady in question, would have had her driver's license. If it was not possible, that would have been the end of the matter. I only had to be informed that it's not possible. And then the process would have carried on. But it didn't work out like that. And I don't know what happened behind the scenes, because I was not involved in the process after that. I was simply told about 4, 5 months or 6 months later that it's being re-advertised. And my perception was that it was debated because it took so long for them to come back, and resolved with the authorities that are involved in this. So most definitely, I'm very conscious of cost cutting and saving money, and that comes not from now, it comes from my background in the magistrates court as well.
Let me just ask the second question. Both of the areas of complaint.
Sorry, both?
Both of the areas of complaint that is there, I'm not going into the merits of the issue, but it seems as if there is a communication issue.
It is.
And I think that is what I would love to elaborate more on, as to how you are as a leader going to deal with the issue of addressing, to make sure there is, in actual fact, ways for junior staff to raise issues with you, that there is an open line of communication, if we can get to that.
Well, I thought we had that open line, because I have that open communication with everyone else, all other senior members of our admin component. I thought I did. And as I said, it was a bit of a shock when I got this, and I couldn't reconcile that letter with the court manager's interactions with me, because as I said, they were always, and even to this day, always very courteous, friendly, polite. So I couldn't reconcile that, and that's what made me realize that one needs to have a proper line of communication, which I thought was in place, but clearly not. So in respect of her, at any rate, and that's what I intend to do. I intend to engage with her. Let us both air what we have felt and how she feels, and together work out how we would take it forward. But I would also like to engage with the JP to see that generally there is a line of communication that we put in place. So this is not repeated in the future.
Just for a small follow-up, CJ, I don't want to elaborate on the other issue because I see there is an ongoing investigation, and I think it was put for the record that there is an ongoing investigation.
Yes.
So that was the other issue that I wanted to say something about, but we can leave it there. I'm satisfied. Thank you, Justice Naidu, and thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Honorable Lucas. Advocate Madonsela SC.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Judge Naidu.
Good afternoon.
Soma Naidu, can I call you Soma?
Yes,
Naidu?
of course. Well, we come a long way. Of course you can.
Yes, nice seeing you after a long time.
Yes, you too.
Yes, Judge Naidu. Now I should call you that. I see you might be 65 years now.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
You might be 65 years.
64.
Yes, 64. Yeah. Now, I wanted to. Now, when do you become eligible for retirement? And I ask, so if I can ask one question, then we can deal with them at once. I ask because I'm just struggling to see what will be the long-term plan that can be achieved with appointing you in the position of deputy JP in circumstances where you are just about to retire.
Oh, no, not just about to. It's just a little, about 6.5 years is when I will retire.
And then, if that is the case, then what plan have you got? What can you do in the remaining years as the DJP, and how should we factor that in the ways that we wish to plan for the succession of the leadership in the Free State? That's my question.
Well, I think we discussed this at the office, and the JP was, we acknowledge that we have a very young bench. I think at the moment I'm the fifth most senior person, fifth most senior judge, and the second most senior female judge in the division. When you talk about what can I do, I have got to this stage of my life and I have accumulated a great deal of experience. My work with the IAWJ and with the Law, Race and Gender Unit entailed a lot of mentoring and mentorship, skills that we as facilitators develop in imparting and developing others. And that is, for me, key to the proper functioning of any organization. And that is one of the key roles that I would play, other than supporting the JP in the proper running of the division, aligning with his vision, but also trying to discuss with him new ways. While we're such a well and good functioning unit, there's always room for improvement. So that is where I hope to come in, that I will supplement and complement his vision and also help him to take that forward, but improving all the time. So to be his eyes and ears, for instance, with areas where we can improve, we can tweak our functioning. So that's the one thing that my experience will give me. And the second leg of that is to upskill those who follow. We do it informally now anyway. You know, the more recently appointed judges do come to me for assistance, especially with legal issues, operational issues, and so on. But to be able to do that is to impart that knowledge to them, not just for my benefit, but for their benefit as well. You can't teach without learning. And just on that point, you know, I read some years ago about this concept of dying empty, and I couldn't understand what that was. And I read a little more, and it says,
Dying what?
Dying empty.
Oh, empty.
There's no point in accumulating knowledge and experience and going to the grave with it. You should give it back to empower and develop other people so that by the time you die, you would have emptied a lot of that knowledge into somebody else who's going to follow you.
I wish we can live longer. Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Madonsela. Commissioner Matolo Lepo.
Thank you, CJ. Good afternoon, Justice.
Good afternoon.
Okay, one of the things I just wanted to know, you know, the MEC spoke about issues that touched me on social development. Yeah? So, and I'm just wondering because Free State, the language barrier, I just want to know how many languages can you speak? If you have to be of assistance to the issues that she raised.
I don't think I understood the question.
No, what I'm saying that how many languages can you speak? Yeah.
Oh, that I can speak. Well, I speak English, Afrikaans, my vernacular. I understand a lot of Zulu because I come from KZN. I've been trying to learn Sotho, but then COVID interrupted that. But I must say I understand a lot more in the 7-8 years that I've been there. And I find that in the Free State, even Black people speak Afrikaans very well. It's almost like their second language. So I have no problems with communicating. And whatever initiatives or projects or whatever, even in the course of work, language has never been a problem. I would love to be able to learn Sotho, and I started in 2019 with taking a course, but then as I said, COVID interrupted and it doesn't, well, my colleagues sort of jokingly speak to me in Sotho, and then, because one or two of them knew about it, and they translate. So in that way, informally, I'm trying to upskill myself as far as that is concerned. But language has never been a problem because I speak Afrikaans, and I find that even with Black people in the Free State, they speak Afrikaans very well.
Okay, just a follow-up. You know the question, why I'm asking that question is because it looks like as much as your charges, you need to reach out to communities.
Oh, absolutely.
You know? And I'm wondering, the communities that the MEC is talking about actually is not the African-speaking or English-speaking communities. So and especially as a senior judge, we need to lead. I always expect more from women.
Yes.
You know, to reach out to communities, to reach out to, you know, in issues of gender violence or whatever. But that's why I'm asking that question. Are you able to do what is expected of you, to go out to communities and speak to people about the issues that affect that?
I've actually done that even in KZN. And it is, I think it's the will. And through the work of the IAWJ, we had done that extensively in KZN. And now in the Free State, we've got a mentoring program going with professionals, the young attorneys, magistrates, law students, and even high school students. And we have to, well, they speak English usually, but we normally, where it's a problem, we always have an interpreter so that we are able to get across whatever it is that we're doing. So through the work of the IWJ, we have been doing that, reaching out. And in KZN, we did it very extensively.
Just the last follow-up. I'm not talking about young attorneys or young legal professionals. I'm saying to communities.
Communities.
That's why.
Yes, well, look, as far as I know, the magistrates do go out. With judges, it's a little bit, it's a bit difficult sometimes with work commitments and so on. But with communities, I think there's been outreach with regard to, for instance, raising awareness of bail, the purpose of bail and what the whole issue of bail is. Because just because somebody is accused or charged doesn't mean he does not qualify for bail, and we have to explain the purpose of bail. What is the purpose of bail? It's not to punish, but to ensure that the person stands trial. So it's issues like that, maintenance, for instance, succession, you know, where there's somebody dies without a will, those issues, yes.
Thank you, CJ, and thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Madala Zebu. Honorable Maganation.
Thank you very much, CJ. Good afternoon, Judge.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Thank you. Now, taking from what Commissioner Lucas has raised, what will be your advice to us, given the fact that in respect of the other allegation of you wanted 2 data lines, you wanted to claim for 2 data lines instead of 1. It is still under investigation.
I'm not aware if that's still under investigation.
That is
is that part? You see, I'm not aware of that. I was not even aware what this investigation was about. But as far as that is concerned, it was resolved. And the court manager, in fact, advised me what to do, which I'm now implementing because I'm due for an upgrade on my contract. And I'm taking into account what she's asked me to do. So I don't know that that was part of an investigation.
Yes, because the document before me is that the investigation is still going on. And my question based on that, if we were to discuss, because we have to deliberate about the suitability of the candidates, if indeed the investigation is still going on, what would you advise us to do with respect to your suitability?
Well, I have responded to the issue that was raised. In my mind, it was suitably resolved, and there was no further reason or no reason to take it further. It was resolved, and I have absolutely no inclination to deal further. She's explained it, I've understood it, and I'm implementing what she's asked me to do. So I really don't know what the investigation is about. But with regard to that issue, between us, it's been resolved.
Sorry, Chief Justice. I mean, if we can establish that there is an investigation,
okay,
because that is what is the document before us, that there is an investigation you are not aware of. But if there is that investigation, and we have to deliberate now, immediately after you leave the room, what do you suggest we should do in case there is that investigation?
Well, if the investigation is ongoing, it would be with regard to the conduct of the court manager, I'm assuming, because I'm not involved in that, or no inputs were obtained from me with regard to that incident. I have given my response. I do not believe that that investigation would in any way bear upon my suitability. I resolved that between us. I don't intend taking it further. As I said, that may well be an investigation if you look at the fact that her immediate supervisor got involved in this matter, which was so trivial. How and by whom I don't know. I was equally surprised. So, and that was completely unnecessary in my view for her supervisor to have become involved. So from that point of view, even though there's an investigation, I believe it doesn't bear on my suitability.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Maganisha. Commissioner Tsepe? Sorry?
Can you please add me to the list? Thanks.
I will, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, CJ.
CJ, just before you move to the next one, I just have a small follow-up to this issue that Honorable Maganisha raised. It's a very small one. Don't take time, please.
Oh, okay, JP, go ahead.
Thank you. Judge, are you aware, you're one of the senior members of the Free State Bench. Are you aware if there are other complaints filed against a judge by a member of staff, especially the court manager?
Well, in that letter, it was Judge Opperman, in the letter that she sent regarding the circuit court. But whether she's taken that up as a complaint, I'm not aware.
Other complaints against other judges?
I'm not aware,
Okay.
no.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, JP. Commissioner Tsepe?
Thank you, CJ. Good afternoon, Judge.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Judge, in response to the question from, a follow-up question from Mr. Madonsela about your contribution to the division, you said that there are areas of improvement. You firstly said that there are systems in place at the division, and we have heard, in fact, from the other judges who've come before us, particularly in relation to two matters I raised about a system of allocation, an equitable system of allocation of work to judges, and the other was a system relating to timeless delivery, ensuring that there is timeless delivery of judgments. You said that there are areas of improvement. I wanted to find out from you where those areas and how would you improve in those areas?
Well, the first one was this issue of communication. I was not aware that we had a problem, but it seems that we do. I do think, though, that it is confined to that one person. And I believe one-on-one interactions will resolve that. Generally, communication is no problem. The other areas is just operational issues. For instance, the filing in our general office, but mostly it's not so much the fault of the clerks. What happens is our matters get allocated to us ahead of the time. Trial matters, our opposed motions, and so on. And attorneys then come and file documents at a late stage, after the roll for that particular day has closed. They don't inform the clerks, for instance, that this matter is already on the roll, or it is most likely with the judge. The clerk has no idea what to do with that document, and you don't blame the clerk for that. So I'd like to improve that, maybe by way of a letter from the JP to the profession to specify that this matter is on the roll or not yet on the roll, so that the clerk is aware and will know where to go and look to put that document, because that document could be important to the hearing, which often has happened in my case. So that is something I'd like to, it's just improving the flow of documentation to the office. As I said, the communication. The other thing that I've noticed increasingly now is that matters which fall within the jurisdiction of the magistrates court and regional court are more and more being brought to the High Court. And I'm very alive to the fact that a litigant has the choice of forum. But we need to interrogate how that impacts on access to justice. And I had a case last week, I think it was, where a big, very big national and multinational company had an application brought against it by a member of the public. But it was a matter that's happened in Sasolburg, which is about 3.5 hours away from Bloemfontein. The respondent, being the big company, was able to brief to counsel to come and appear. And the applicant, who is unemployed at this point, had to struggle to get to the High Court. And he said he just didn't have the money, and he's sorry that he couldn't file his documents. He had not filed the replying papers, and he said he just simply did not have money to go and see a lawyer. He needs time to get legal aid. Now, that made me think, where's the access to justice to this person? In matters like that, it could have been brought in the regional court, for instance, in Sasolburg. Then he would have had access. So it's that, and it is a bit of a sensitive point, because a litigant generally has the choice, and you can't interfere too much with that choice. And I know my JP holds the same view, but perhaps we can discuss a way forward with regard to that.
Thank you, Judge. The last question relates to another area you raised, which is upskilling of junior judges. You said currently it's informally done. Is there a plan to have that formalized? And if so, how would you go about it?
Well, sometime last year, the JP, during one of my acting stints as DJP, raised that with me, and he said, can we put something in place? For example, a Wednesday. Let's do something on a Wednesday at lunchtime. Now we have well, before COVID, we had a wonderful system where judges would gather in the tea room for lunch. You bring your own little lunchbox, or sometimes we felt like ordering in, and everybody would order in, and it was a very cordial kind of gathering. So the JP was looking at tapping into something like that, and also having, as part of that gathering, a training initiative. Even if we started simple with just bringing to the attention of colleagues new legislation that's been amended that affects us. I think it's been put in place already. The JP has spoken to the registrar, the chief registrar, and from time to time she sends us emails to say, this is an amendment, this is going to affect our work, and so on. So it is there in place, but I think perhaps if we can formalize it, but the training and the upskilling, certainly, I would like to see that happening. I know he would, but we have to find a way of how to do it. COVID is simply, it's just not possible right now. But for the future, I do think that that would be quite helpful, given the fact that we have quite a young bench. And you know, the succession plan that one of the other commissioners, I think it was Commissioner Madansela, spoke about, would become a lot easier then. And it would be a clearer path.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tsepe. Commissioner Barnard.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Judge Naidu.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
I just want to clarify something that I'm uncertain about. Judge JP Musi asked you about or referred to 3 judgments outstanding, 2 for 78 days and 1 for 46 days. And then you explained that before you delivered one of the judgments, you realized there was something omitted and then rectified that, which is a good thing. But I'm not sure the other 2 judgments, because you mentioned 3, and I'm not sure whether you were responding in respect of all 3 in that question.
Well, all those judgments from that time have all been delivered, yes.
Thank you. But the fact that you put it on the form, you explained that
I thought it was going to be delivered, yes, and I had to hold it back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable Singh.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice, and good afternoon, Justice Naidu.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Good. I'm going to take advantage of the fact that you served in the family courts in Durban, and just to say that I think the minister was very proud recently when he opened a new state-of-the-art family court in Durban, which in terms of infrastructure must be a far cry from when you were there. But for me, it's not the infrastructure which is important, but it's more important. Do you think from your experience that those that are sexually and violently abused, particularly women and children, are receiving the kind of respect and attention that they should receive when they become victims, by starting from reporting the matter at a police station right up to the court level? What can be done to improve things? And do you have such kind of cases in abundance in the Free State? And have you had to sit in judgment in any one of these cases, which has been significant? Thank you.
Well, you're right about the infrastructure. It really was, it left a lot to be desired in those days. We, as magistrates, had to be very resourceful and look at how we could improve the lot of the people that came there to the family courts. And I was quite pleased when one of the magistrates sent me the notification that a new family court for Durban was opened. With regard to, it is problematic. Your question with regard to whether there are still problems in the way victims of violence, and especially sexual violence, are dealt with. I don't know, that is not dealt with at a very great level at the High Court level. I do still have contact with magistrates and some of them in the Free State. There was a center for dealing with abused women especially. And I understand from the Chief Magistrate that that's become too small. Their workload with regard to that has increased. They have a little office or a space in one of the local hospitals, and he said to me a few weeks ago that is simply inadequate. We really need to look at getting bigger premises so that we can deal more effectively. So I'm guessing that at that level it is still a problem, which is sad. They need to improve infrastructure firstly to accommodate cases like this, but training of police officials, training of social workers has to be ongoing because there is a staff turnover. And to this day, one gets reports that a victim goes to lay a charge, for instance, and they say, but it's a domestic matter, go to the domestic violence court. And that, for me, stems just from ignorance, because nothing prevents that complainant from opening a criminal charge in addition to going and obtaining a protection order in the family courts, in the domestic violence section. So I don't believe that it is as bad as it was, but certainly it needs improvement. And that is ongoing interactions and trainings, which I used to do when I headed the family courts. I had regular interactions with the various stakeholders, and especially the police. We really were running things quite smoothly. But as we know, police officials, they turn over, their duties in that office ends and they go somewhere else. So ongoing training for me is important, in addition to the infrastructure challenges that need to be addressed.
Just as a follow-up, knowing the very heavy load work that you'll have in your division, and I think other judges as well, have you individually volunteered to offer training to any levels, whether it's the police or the magistrates or social workers in this regard?
Yes, we are. And I was invited by NADAL, I was invited by BLA to do part of their training, but with the police and that, I think it's done at magistrates court level, not so much at high court level. I have indeed, to answer your question, I have indeed volunteered my services. The chief magistrate, who is, I believe, on suspension now, and there's an acting chief magistrate, also are very keen for us as the High Court judiciary to get involved. And think it must have been about a month ago when I had discussions with him. And he is now looking at ways in which we can interact with them. So if we, for instance, are called to one of their trainings, I would be more than happy to impart some of my knowledge and experience at that level. He's also very interested in us empowering magistrates. And I know they have in the magistrates court, which was even in place when I was still there, peer training or peer review workshops or sessions. It varies from court to court when and how they hold it. And I suggested to him that if they have these trainings, perhaps once a month you can invite a judge. The JP, I'm sure, will be very happy to to volunteer services with judges. But I also said to him, as part of the Women Judges Association's outreach, we would be happy to also jointly liaise with the JP to put something like that in place.
Thank you, Judge Nader. Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Honorable Singh. Honorable Bedovu.
Thank you, Honorable CJ. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
I've got one specific question. You are 7 years in the bench, and looking at your record, you are afforded an opportunity to state not more than 10 cases where you have written judgments. You only provided 3. You are afforded an opportunity to do the same. There is only one case that was reported over 7 years, your case, where judgments were unsuccessfully appealed. You are afforded 10 to state, you only stated 3. And where your judgments were successfully appealed, you only provided 2. What could be the problem over 7 years given the experience of others? This is too little.
No, there are more. The problem was sourcing that information. It was a huge problem because we weren't getting feedback from, for instance, the SCA. And I did take that up with the Chief Registrar as well as our appeals clerk. And they couldn't provide me with that because there are many matters that I had permitted leave to, or granted leave to appeal. I was wanting to follow up what happened with these matters. We couldn't source it, unfortunately, at that time because I was on circuit and I was not at my office. And we always have problems with our emails and internet when you're on circuit. So I wasn't able to source that information, and I was asking the registrar to help me. And she herself said she's tried, even our researchers, both of our researchers said, I've got all these judgments, but I don't know what the results were. So they have now put in place a system to assist us with that.
I will have to follow up this one, Chief Justice. You are appointed in 2014 in the Free State.
Yes.
And you can't source the information in the Free State where you are the acting deputy judge president.
Yes, there was a problem.
And linked to that, these are your judgments. Justice, are your judgments. You should remember them.
I have my
Isn't it so?
judgments. I understood you to ask which ones have been overturned and which ones have been upheld.
In this instance, you should because these are your judgments.
Yes, I have my judgments. I just don't know what happened with them after I'd granted leave to appeal, for instance. That report back was the problem. You grant leave to appeal and you don't hear about it. That's the problem. Where it was a full bench decision in our court, yes, that I could have. And the only one that was overturned was the Mashinini and Boa one. That was a full bench decision in our court. But where it went to the Supreme Court of Appeal, if it went to the Supreme Court of Appeal, is not information that was readily forthcoming. And we even tried the registrar at the SCA, and they said, well, we don't keep a register, we just send it off. And our office didn't keep that kind of register. They do have it now, so they are able to judge by judge file those outcomes that come from the SCA. So that was the challenge I had at that time.
CJ, I will have to leave by my sword. I said one question, but I have many. It's okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Dodovu. Honorable JP Mlambo.
Thank you, CJ. I'll pass.
Thank you. Judge, I just need clarification. You had 3 judgments reserved. The reason you have stated for not having disclosed that reality was that regarding one of them, there was information that was inadvertently left out. It could not therefore be delivered on time because that information had to be included. What about the other 2?
They were delivered.
So they were not outstanding when you completed the form, the questionnaire?
No.
Okay, I just needed to get that clear because there was no clarity. Thank you so much, Judge. You're excused.
Thank you, CJ.
Thank you. Colleagues, while Judge Naidu is leaving, can we agree that we will not eat until we've deliberated and finalized, or are you insisting on lunch?
Let's eat, please, CJ. I'm really hungry. I can barely concentrate.
Okay, colleagues, we agreed?
I was going to say, CJ, let's deliberate. But if my senior elders say something else, I don't want to do a career limiting thing and go against them. Thank you, CJ.
I don't have any power, Judge Murabu.
Can we come back at 25 past?
Yes.
Thank you.
CJ, you forgot me.
Yes. Sorry?
You forgot me on the list. But it's a good thing because I had just stepped out.
I apologize, my brother. I didn't have you for some reason. I apologize to you.
No, CJ, I know these things. It's a conspiracy.
Can I just make one request before we break for lunch?